We'll call to order the December 17, 2019 full city council meeting. The clerk will call the roll and record attendance.
Anderson Burgos. Bartley.
Here.
Bresnahan. Leahy.
I'm present.
LeBron Martinez.
Here.
Lisi. McGee. McGivern.
Here.
Murphy.
Here.
Sullivan. Tallman.
Here.
Bacon. Valentine.
Yes. Here.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
the city of Holyoke.
And the city council.
Mr. President, can I offer a suggestion that we have a minute of silence or a moment of silence because one of our colleagues, good friend of mine, Juan Burgos, his mom passed away.
Yes, I was going to ask for that. Thank you, Councilor Leahy. For those who don't know, whether here at home, our friend, colleague, lost his mom today. A very hard time. Asked for a moment of silence for our colleague and our friend and for his mom. Thank you. Councilor Bresnahan did text. He is on the way. As we know, the weather is bad.
I think he's here.
Okay, so with that, we'll go right into first item on the agenda, which is the handicap sign. It was tabled, and I was informed that since there's no legal form for it, it should remain tabled because we don't have it in order to act on. So with that, we go on to the budget. 2 and 3 is option A, which is a supplemental budget for fiscal year 2020. Then option B for supplemental budget fiscal year 2020.
Mr. President, can I
Councilor
ask
Leahy.
for the indulgence of the fine city council? Maybe we can go out of order and have the public commentary first. I think that some of the people in the audience, including I see the mayor's here, maybe would want to discuss this before we talk about it.
Okay, so motion is to go out of order to public comment. All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First for public comment is Kevin Jordan, 18 Raymond Ave, former president, former city councilor.
The time limit on public comment?
9 minutes.
Well, it's only Kevin
Just teasing.
listed, and then I'm sure we're gonna have the mayor come up, and it's, after that, it's basically not really public comment, it's getting information on the budget, so we'll give a little leeway.
Okay, great. Thank you, counselors. Really nice to be with you. First, I just wanted to make a couple observations. Again, my name, Kevin Jordan, 18 Raymond Avenue. I wanted to first make sure everybody's had an opportunity, citizens and counselors, to look at this report that was requested by Counselor Bartley from the assessor's office detailing the free cash dwindling from 10 years ago at $6 million a year all the way down to now a historic low of a negative $464,000. So that's the first time in decades that we've had actually a negative free cash balance. That actually means that not only have we traditionally used the dollars that have been left over from prior fiscal years to cover some of our expenses in the current fiscal year, but now we actually have to go back and you raise taxes $464,000 extra this year in order to pay for last year's bill. So that is a very troubling trend. And I would tell you at the outset, you can't say that that is somehow a sign of good things. That is to say that we're budgeting better because the budget keeps going up every single year. That argument would only work if there was a corresponding offset in the amount of the budget to correspond to the amount of reduction in the free cash. The reality is, over all of these years, the budget is up, and free cash is down, down, down. So what's actually happening is we're noticing that the budget is actually growing at even at a faster pace, and now you no longer have free cash to subsidize the rate of the increase. So a couple of things is, the city council should really, to as much as you humanly possible, stick to your vote that you took back in June, which was to set a budget based on a levy of $54.8 million. The levy in 2019 was $53.9 million. That's already represents an $800,000 increase. That's already a major increase that the taxpayers are going to have to absorb. What's being proposed this evening is to just basically increase all the way to the new maximum because of this good values that we got out of the residential, to just take another $1.2 million on top of the $800,000 that's already represented in your budget and go all the way $2.1 million all the way up to the levy ceiling, or basically at the levy ceiling, and just either put it away. I see there's one option, which is to allocate it all out. There's another option, which is to put it in the stabilization fund. That's probably from the city council's perspective. If you had to do this, that would be the option I would recommend to you. But I think it's very important for you to observe the levy is going up a lot. It was between $200,000 and $500,000 a year for about a 4-year stretch. It then went up $1 million. Then it went up another $1 million last year, and now it's proposed to go up $2.1 million. That is going to represent a real hit. And my last point for the evening is going to be, when you go to once you fix the budget, when you set the tax rates tonight, you need to do something to offset the 5% increase in values that the residents are going to get hit. 65% of the voters of this community sent an unbelievable message that they didn't want any more tax increases. Enough is enough. And the last year they got hit with the full brunt of the 5% valuation increase. Both the rate and the value went up. This year we need to offset. If we're going to go up 5% on the values, you need to have a rate somewhere in the mid-18s that offsets that somewhat, so the rate increase is more in the range of 2 to 2.5%. So I want to thank the council for an opportunity to speak. I know that's a lot of information to get out, but I hope that you'll have something that is business friendly, certainly keeping them below 40, but also reasonable to the residential, especially in light of the large increase last year. Thank you.
Now, is there a motion to have the mayor up to discuss?
President, I would suggest we go to items 2, 3, and the late filed option C. The mayor doesn't need to speak under public comment. We can suspend the
Well, no,
rules and be
that's
able to
fair.
ask them questions.
Second.
That's what I was going to do. So motion is to go to late file C. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is it late file A? Option?
Option C. I don't know what late file it was.
A.
This morning, there were no late files.
Yeah, late file A. So late file A is option C for the supplemental budget. So we now have before us options A, B, and C. Motion is suspend the rules to allow the mayor to speak.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, counselors, for allowing me the opportunity to say a few words. And also want this to be a conversation. I expect counselors to have questions, and like all of you, hope that we can move forward on one of these options and set the tax rate and go from there. A couple of things I want to start off by saying. Obviously, when we put the budget together in the spring and go before the council, we didn't have the final valuations of city property. And so obviously all of us were pretty pleased to see the state go through the reval of our residential properties that added additional new growth to the city. And so, number one, that's a good thing for the city. It's a little unconventional. The process this year, how it typically works, is that we go into this evening with a budget deficit, and then we ask the council to do a transfer from the free cash account to cover that deficit that then allows us to do the tax rate setting process. And I think one of the good things, despite the lack of free cash funds, is the fact that given the levy capacity and the revaluation and the new growth happening in the city, it is the first time in about a decade we don't need to tap into free cash or go all the way up to the maximum levy capacity to balance the budget. And so when you look at the supplemental options, we wanted to provide as many options to the council as possible. Obviously, number one, there's the status quo, and then the three options before you tonight, A, B, and C. And I would just say also on the free cash, yes, there's been a decline in free cash at this point in the year over a certain number of years. I think, number one, when you have a more accurate reflection of the budget, and when you have millions of dollars in free cash left over, it pretty much sends a strong message that you're taxing your residents without necessarily spending that money in the first place. And so I think when you accurately put in revenue and expenditures into a budget, there ideally shouldn't be free cash to begin with. Obviously, if revenues come in higher, expenses come in lower, it's a welcome addition. But when any business puts together a budget, you want to be able to make it balanced as much as possible, and that's what we were happy to see this year. All three of the supplemental budget proposals don't tax the residents at 100% of what the council could do. Option A leaves a little over $200,000 in unused capacity. Option B and C both leave about $118,000 in unused capacity in terms of setting the tax rate. You'll see the list of expenses. We've worked with DOR. I know this came up last Thursday with the council meeting and the tax rate hearing. Many of the things in the supplemental budget are items that were originally requested when I presented the budget to the council earlier this year. So many of these things aren't that unfamiliar, and most of our department heads are here to answer questions specific to any of those items. We did accommodate at the request of Council President McGee an option that sends all of the supplemental budget to stabilization that would in turn put together a process where when we do have expenses coming back to the council later in the year for those, one of my concerns about 100% of the capacity going to stabilization is that we know, having spoken to department heads, that we do have outstanding liabilities that we need to pay between now and the end of the year. And what we don't want to be in a position to have to do is ask this body to appropriate money from stabilization from things that would be considered operating expenses, like the legal settlements and other things that are in the supplemental budget. And then option C, which is delayed file, is a combination of the two. And so you'll see a deposit into the stabilization fund while also funding a series of things that are included in the supplemental budget. I will say that we are going to work with our financial department heads on some of the specific fund deficits that contribute to lower free cash for the city. A lot of those are related to specific grants in specific departments. And so you may remember over the last couple of years, DOR has forced us to cure a number of those deficits if the reimbursements weren't filed by a particular deadline, if the money wasn't received back to the city. Many of those have already been cured even before tonight, but won't be reflected until next year's free cash calculation. And so work is still getting done to reconcile those accounts. But again, overall, I think you have three options before you, and I put together a FAQ to explain some of the dynamics at play. I know a number of you had called or emailed with specific questions about the situation and what was on your plate tonight. And I know we have a number of the finance department heads here tonight. Want to thank all of them for being here, Mike in my office and everyone else involved in helping present the supplemental budgets and answer as many questions as possible. And again, we're all here tonight to work together to get this done. So thank you for the opportunity.
Any questions? Councilor Leahy.
Now, are we going over the spreadsheet, that supplemental budget request option C? Or how are we doing this, Council President?
Well, it's a choice about it. I know Tony, our assessor, is here. Everyone should have on their desk an updated version as to the three options. You did receive an email today, but that you could disregard. What you have in front of your desk is the most current and most accurate. So with that regard, it's the will of the body as to if you want to ask questions of the assessor on this, or if you want to move forward in the sense of taking up one of these and voting on it.
I think my questions were specifically related to different line items here on this sheet here, why additional sums are needed.
You're gonna ask?
So, Mayor, if I could, one of the things that I think is troubling is, maybe not even to you, sir, maybe to the city solicitor, and this is absolutely no reflection in you and your department, but one of the large amounts of payments, settlements we have to do is, I think, this is my opinion, nobody else's but mine, a poor management style and an employee that was getting shafted left and right. And so now we had to pay that employee, right? So is that part of this? That's already been paid? That's already. Right, so we voted on that already?
I don't know if there was a vote. That's already
There
been.
wasn't.
That's already been pulled out of our budget.
Right, so that's why I'm troubled by putting this money in there, because I always like underfunding the city solicitor's department, no offense to you, but it's always checks and balances, so I know exactly what cases you guys are paying and paying off. That case, I think, was poor management, where you had an employee that was pretty much, in my opinion, it was crucified by this one person. And so I would never voted for that. I mean, this employee deserved the money, but I never would have, I would have wanted other things to happen. So having said that, are you gonna break down exactly what lawsuits that this special counsel's for?
So special counsel is paying the outside counsel. Settlements and torts is where, we have 2 settlements coming out of that.
Okay, so those two, and also, I guess, need to know who are the special counsel.
Right, and I can give you that information.
We'll give it to the public.
Sure. So special counsel is a mixture. It's Chuck Emma handling various cases for us.
What street address is he at in Holyoke?
I don't know his street address in Holyoke.
Just curious.
We also have special counsel that we utilized for a bankruptcy matter. I don't know if the council's familiar, but there are 3 buildings that one owner operates in the city. And while we were doing code enforcement, he filed a bankruptcy right in the middle. We were requested of the court to file emergency motions. For those of you who may or may not know, bankruptcy is very specialized. So we had to file a motion within a couple days. We did hire outside counsel to handle that bankruptcy issue so that we could continue our code enforcement action to make sure that this owner was forced to comply. So there is outside counsel being utilized for that. It's attorney Joseph Lang. He comes from Lyon & Fitzpatrick. That's a Holyoke law firm. And he's done a wonderful job. Unfortunately, the bankruptcy judge didn't agree with us, but the owner is complying. They are making repairs. So we did get a good outcome there. As to the other cases that Attorney Emma is handling for us, I do have Tasha Marshall from my office who handles most of our litigation, who could give you more of a rundown as far as case names. Without an executive session, we can't discuss too much in detail. But you're all familiar, you've all seen these cases on numerous occasions. Our last litigation update ran through all of them. Nothing is new here. In general, Attorney Emma charges roughly $9,000 to $10,000 a month. I have looked at those bills.
$10,000 a month, you said?
Correct, for all of his cases that he handles for us. I do go through the bills and ask him to reduce certain line items if I feel that it's overcharged or that maybe it was too much time. And he has agreed to some of that. So we do negotiate with him on some of those bills to bring them down. As to the settlements, there are 2 settlements on for tonight. One in the amount of $25,000. It's a partial settlement payment that is happening this year. The other payment will be happening next year. So in total, it's a $50,000 settlement. That is for our Gates case. It was a MCAD case. We also have a settlement of $65,000 for the Pagan case. It is a, where's Tasha? It's a civil rights case. For any of you that know, there was a very large lawsuit that came out of Springfield this year. They got hit with quite a large judgment. So we are treading lightly. We feel it's a adequate settlement for that case, especially in light of what is happening locally in our area with the court system dealing with these other civil rights cases.
Okay.
And then as it notes here, there's just an additional $6,000 that we're asking for because we have yet to hit spring, we have yet to hit potholes and DPW claims and other various claims that we always hit in the spring. So if we were only to ask for 2 settlements, we know that we'd come up short. So that's what our line items are for.
All right, my next question, sir, Mayor. You're asking for excuse my voice. I think I'm coming out with a cold. Sorry, Peter. $7,500 for constituent coverage. What is this for? And why is this different than what we've done in the past?
Yeah, so that's basically restoring a cut that was made by the council in the spring when I presented the budget, and it's not different than the past. So what I asked for in spring of this year when I presented the budget was the same amount of money that was budgeted in extra clerical in FY19, and the council cut it by that very dollar amount. And so as part of the supplemental, I just plugged that back in.
So did the person lose a position on this, or what happened to that person?
It's less hours, and so we have 3 full-time. We have less. When you look at the budget for even 2000, from between 2000 and 2005 in the mayor's office, the personnel budget is less today in 2019 than it was in the mayor's office in 2005. We have 3 full-time people in the mayor's office, and we had 1 part-time clerical person that would help with constituent services, case management, farmers market, and other activities. And so that was decreased significantly. And so it's as part of the supplemental, we just wanted to put that in there. And I would point out, we've been in touch with the DOR, and when you look at these supplemental budget requests, all 3 of them, the council does have line-by-line authority. And so if there is a section of the supplemental budget that you don't want reflected in the budget between now and June 30th, the council does have the right to cut that. You don't have the right to add to it.
All right, so let me ask you this. So a part of this, so we were presented with, I think it was, I forget exactly who brought it up and who found it, but a gentleman that used to work for the city of Holyoke is getting a $10,000 a year contract. Is this a part of that at all?
No, that's
Consulting services?
No, it's in a personnel expense line, and so that wouldn't be reflected in there.
So where did that money come from?
I think we provided that information at a previous council meeting. I think it was
Wasn't
unexpended
there.
personnel department money, and I think we've showed those contracts, and that employee is no longer on a contract with the city at this point.
And my last question is, and it's actually, I think it's a good one. It's not a good question. I think it's a good line item. The cybersecurity insurance. So now we're insured. So if somebody wires money to somebody, we're insured for that now?
If we pay for the policy, yes. And so we worked with our carrier, we work with Dowd Insurance on looking at the best policy. We think, $12,500 a year is a worthy expense given some of the issues that have happened. It's also not specifically for issues like that, although it would cover it, but phishing and emails with employees. And I would also say at the request of the council, we've invested in every city employee has now been trained in cybersecurity, how to be able to tell if you're getting a spam email or a faulty request. And we have procedures now with our new IT vendor as well, Wally, that sends test emails out. And so we're able to identify those employees that fall for the scam. And if they fall for it several times, there's policies and procedures in place that
No,
provide.
I think that's a good one. I'm just adding
Yeah.
that because I think that's a good one. Are there, I mean, you have an eye on this. Are other communities doing the same thing with that?
Yeah, I mean, municipalities all across the state and really all across the country within the last several years have been hit with similar. Yes, it's unfortunate what happened here in Holyoke. It's happened to even greater extent with larger dollars in other communities. And so, we've seen the school department be attacked. We've seen the police department be attacked here and there where our systems are down. And so this insurance just makes sure that it provides additional safeguard, get reimbursement for potential, theft of money electronically
All right.
and things like that.
Thank you,
So-
guys. Thank you all. Thank you.
Counselor Sullivan.
Thanks. This could be either the mayor or Crystal. 6 months ago, we sent a request on one of the suits regarding this is not a suit against the city, regarding the Essex House and the insurance claim.
Still there?
And requesting that either a 122 or a 122A or a 95 motion be filed for unfair and deceptive business practices and insurance practices. The amount of money, and also at that time, we were also informed that the city didn't want to do that yet because we were very close to reaching an agreement with the insurance carrier. And to date, nothing has happened either with the request we sent to file not a 95, 93A, I guess it is. Now, that one item is more than enough to cover both the 96,000 requested and 75,000 requested, and more on top of that. Why has nothing been done with that?
We currently have dueling motions for summary judgment that were just heard, I think, 2 weeks ago. And they're currently sitting before the judge. We're waiting for a judgment.
All right, and the dollar amount of our claim on that?
I don't know if I have that information readily available. It's not on our list of items to discuss tonight.
Well, just, I don't need the exact to the penny amount, but it's 250,000, 300,000, $1 million, what is it?
There's no settlement offers right now. Right now, we have pleadings sitting in front of a judge waiting for them to decide.
Then why haven't we gotten aggressive with the insurance company? They've had this in front of them for years.
We have a motion for summary judgment that we filed. I mean, that's about as, we're basically saying this is our last and I mean, a motion for summary judgment is trying to finalize a case. I don't know how to get more aggressive than that.
All right, and who's made the motion for summary judgment? What, is that the outside attorney also?
Attorney Emma's handling that, correct?
Which attorney?
Attorney Emma?
Emma, I see, okay.
Counselor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't understand, or maybe I should be used to this, but why we're doing this in December every year. And it's getting more and more frustrating. Last year, December 4th, we received a copy of an email to Mayor Morse from the Department of Revenue telling us what was certified free cash was $865,593, and citing deficits within certain city line items, some which have been going on for years, totaling $775,048. This December, that same letter came from DOR, same letter with different numbers from Mary Jane Handy, and each of us got a copy of that via email, which cited something even different, a negative free cash, which we've never heard of, and at least in modern day times we've never heard of, and deficits which are totaling $1.7 million. The deficits have gone away. So contrary to popular belief, we're being told there was no negative free cash, there's no free cash. The DOR, my understanding, and I don't want to put numbers on this because I think we have to do a much more thorough analysis of this, has taken money that could have been or would have been free cash and used it to pay deficits. A lot of them are grants that have not been managed properly by departments and not been managed properly by the city. A lot of them took place, I'm sure, nothing intentional, maybe some inadvertent errors, maybe some accounting errors, but poor management regardless, when it totals up that much money going back to 2014. If those accounts and all the deficits were at zero, we would have had a good free cash amount this year, contrary to what I've heard, because we have a decent budget for the first time in years. If you remember when we passed the budget, the deficiency was the smallest it's been in the last decade. We did so after making cuts, we did so after working with the mayor, and we put that budget forward. We have before us three options. We can talk about the two options that have line items. Each of them have about 14, 15 line items. There's some things there, the superior officer's contract, we received it about 1 meeting ago. The Finance Committee had a preliminary meeting last week with the Law Department. The union didn't show up, so we have a lot of questions about that contract. Quite frankly, if we're going to go forward, I have a lot of questions this evening for the mayor about that contract. It looks like the total raises over the period could be close to 7%. Some of the items negotiated were use of Narcan for superior officers. I'm trying to find out how many superior officers, since Narcan has come on the scene, have actually used it or had to use it. There's a lot of questions that we have to ask in each of these line items to be fair, and to do so tonight is not fair to any one of us. Therefore, Councilor McGee made a good suggestion at the Finance Committee last week, and I thank the mayor for allowing it to be an option, to transfer some money that the DOR is allowing, unusual at this time of year, of values that came in greater than what was projected, and to transfer it into stabilization so it will be there to be used if needed throughout the year. We can do it one by one, item by item, as only can be done, proposed by the mayor, and it would take a 2/3 vote of this council. Tonight's vote is a simple majority vote to do whatever we're doing. This is a supplemental budget, and we do have line item control, as pointed out. So if we passed the amount, some amount, doesn't have to be the full amount, into stabilization, we're recreating what would have been free cash, giving us the option, snow removal, emergencies, items that we are going to need money between now and the end of the year, as happens every year. I don't think we have to explain that. And we can choose it, as we always do with free cash, one item at a time. So rather than go through 14 items with 13 of us asking our questions this evening, I'm encouraging everyone to consider transferring an amount of money into stabilization to have that cushion. Transferring it out will not affect our bond rating. Transferring it out will not be contrary to the policy that we have for stabilization. DOR said if we choose this option, stabilization is the only account we can choose to transfer the money into. It is taking advantage of the tax ceiling. We've been near the tax ceiling for some years now. We finally are getting out of the hole of the value that we lost when the Mount Tom coal plant closed up. We are getting better. That's a good sign. It's a good sign because, yeah, our free cash is less. I consider that a little bit of a good sign that the budget's being managed much better than it has been in the past. The free cash situation, you know, if we had too much free cash, the question is, why was that money allocated in the first place? So there's some good news in everything that we're looking at. And I'll remind everyone, I said at the budget hearing this year, we have heard this naysay argument over and over and over again. For the last 20 years more, we have made it through every budget. We have fought to keep the services we provide. We fought to keep the employees we have to provide those services at reasonable salaries. We have fought to provide services that I believe our constituents want, whether it be police, fire, public safety, Parks and Rec, DPW. You can go on. We're a service provider, but we need a budget that will be able to recognize what it takes to provide the services the constituents, our constituents and the residents of Holyoke want and deserve. So I suggest that we transfer some amount into stabilization. It'll be a cushion to get us through the rest of the year. Any money that we don't take advantage, whether it's a line item or whether it's a transfer, you know, through a supplemental budget, will go away for this year completely. It'll be dollars that we will never make up. If we take advantage of some of that good found news that we are not at the ceiling, then I think we got some money for a cushion and we're in much better shape with that than without it.
Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm in light of what Councilor McGivern said, I'm gonna ratchet down my comments because I feel like this is just so the public knows, this is kind of, I mean, I'm speaking directly to the chair, but when we have subcommittee meetings, it's more of a free-flowing conversation, Mr. President, as you know, and I think I'd like to have that free-flowing conversation in finance instead of me asking some very pointed questions about this. And, you know, looking at the time, and I see it's only 20 of 8, but if we went through this, as Councilor McGivern rightly noted, it would be a very long night, and I'm not sure what we accomplished. I didn't hear Councilor McGivern, I know he didn't say on purpose, offer a specific amount. I agree with just about everything that he said. I think we have to come up with, I mean, something to, you know, reasonable to, I mean, as Councilor McGivern said, I'm sorry for keep mentioning your name, Joe, I do apologize. As the finance chair mentioned, there's a union contract in committee that has not been approved, and we have a budget before us asking us to fund a contract that's not approved. We have multiple items on here that were previously cut by a large majority of this board back on June 27th. And now we're asked to restore it again at the 11th hour I mean, literally at the 11th hour. As Mr. President is aware, because you were one of the 5 to appear at the tax classification hearing. If we don't get the bills out tonight, we don't get the budget, but the tax rate set tonight, bills aren't going to go out on time. And we faced that 2 years ago. So we had 5 city councilors, I think it was 5, maybe 6, at the tax classification hearing last Thursday. And I want to thank Mr. DeLude for putting, and Mrs. Brunel for putting together a nice presentation. I just want to make, I am going to make one, so I'm going to leave the police stuff alone, but I do want to ask the mayor a couple things, if he would. Mayor, please. This is just comparing option A, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, I hope you're doing well. Option A, Mr. Mayor, which for some reason, oh, there it is, in which you said you were going to, or your office, I don't want to put on you, but health insurance, this transfer of $500,000, or in addition of $500,000 to the $10.3 million. And it said in the comment line, expected expenditure given cost trends. Now, that was option A that we received, I believe, Friday afternoon. Option C, which I received this morning, that $500,000 is no longer specifically requested, but it says $597,018 to stabilization. And the comment there says, moved health insurance needs to stabilization. So if you would, just explain to me what happened between, how do we come up with 500,000, Mr. Mayor?
Thanks, Counselor. So we are looking at let me just back up a second. So last fiscal year, we were with Cigna, and then this current fiscal year, we're with Health New England. And so we do the best we can trying to predict what decisions employees are going to make. Are they going to migrate to a different plan, a more expensive plan, a more affordable plan for both themselves, their families, and/or the impact on the city? And so we do the best we can to make predictions after we come to an agreement with the Section 19 committee to make projections as to how much we need to budget in the fiscal year budget. And just having chatted with the finance departments, the auditor, given current trends that we're in December, seeing what the monthly costs are for health insurance, it looks like we're going to need at least $500,000 in our health insurance account to get to the end of the year. And so we're going to continue to monitor that. Option A does include it directly going into health insurance. And option C eliminates that, as you said, Counselor, and puts that in stabilization. I think we see option C as a combination of A and B, where we cover some of the supplemental budget requests, the line items, while also putting a dollar amount in stabilization to provide a check and balance with the city council. I will mention, and I appreciate Councilor McGivern's point about more questions and wanting to talk to more department heads about specific requests. There are certain things in here, and if Crystal's welcome to talk a little bit more about them, the settlements in particular, have been executed, and some of them are time sensitive. And so if the council does go in the direction of putting all of it in stabilization, then I would assume that we would be back here in short order with a request from stabilization to settle those lawsuits. So I just want to be transparent about that. But that's why we came up with that $500,000 number, Counselor.
Okay, so the trends were, because I read that in their trends. So trends are established by whom? By the auditor, by the treasurer?
The auditor and the treasurer are working together on the bills, working with personnel, looking at the monthly expenses, and if they stay on track with the average between now and June 30th, we expect to have to transfer more money in there.
Yeah, have the auditor, treasurer in your office, have you presented any of those trends prior to this time to the city council?
I believe there's monthly budget reports that get submitted to the council by the auditor, and I believe that those will be included in those.
Okay, so just so the public knows, the monthly budget reports, I mean, how big are they, Mr. President? Mr. President said they're pretty thick, so that's a fairly significant. I mean, I'm not saying an executive summary every time, Mr. Mayor. It's no reflection on you, but so something of that significance, maybe you want to pluck it out.
Yep.
That's just a thought. No big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Just $500,000. And I appreciate Jimmy's questions. The cybersecurity insurance, okay, you picked Dowd Insurance, and how did Dowd come to you with this, or did Wally suggest it, or how did we come up with this?
We have an insurance committee, so it includes both of our carriers, Ross, Weber, and Grinnell, along with Dowd, along with a number of department heads. We've put together a safety committee that includes representatives from City Hall that meet on a regular basis to talk about how to implement policies around, driving safety with employees to keep claims low, things that the city can, low-hanging fruit that the city can make investments in to get our policy more competitive or lower. And so at one of those meetings that I was at, it was presented by Dowd that given the situation in a couple of city departments and given the increasing threat to municipalities around the state and around the country, that it would be a wise investment, $12,000 for the city to make, to have a pretty comprehensive cybersecurity policy. So
what you're saying, but I assume that this is a half-year premium?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so cybersecurity, we could expect to see in the FY21 budget, based on this, a premium request for $25,000?
Probably at the max, probably a little bit less than that, but you can expect to see that in there, yes.
Just a couple more, Mr. President. I appreciate it. Just explain the line on under the police line. For school resource officers, $118,000. This expense will be covered 100% by new revenue from the school department. So is that, how does that work, Mr. President? I mean, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so this is more of an accounting issue than a actual issue in reality in the budget. And so the school department pays for the salary of 2 full-time SROs in the public schools. And so we weren't traditionally including the 2 officers actually in the number of officers we hire, and we weren't counting the revenue from the schools that they were paying the salaries as revenue. And so it's more correcting an accounting practice without having an actual effect in terms of dollar amount on the city budget. And Tanya, if I'm explaining that wrong, you can correct me. Yeah.
But we are making a request for $118,000. That's in your.
And we're going to update.
That's in your request, isn't it?
Yeah, and it would include a simultaneous update to our revenues. It's just we have to appropriate it correctly.
Oh, okay. One more thing, Mr. President.
And it'll be reflected correctly in the FY21 budget. That was just recently brought to our attention as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Vacan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to step back, and I want to talk about the budget from more of the macro perspective than these line items that we're looking at. And I just want to remind my colleagues and the public that when we first started looking at this budget in May, it was a 5.7% increase. Now, we're hearing that things are thin and people have less than they had before, but a 5.7% increase is a lot. Out of that budget of $65,563,499, we only cut $615,000, which is now being essentially restored for the most part. So we really didn't cut very much out of that. My concern is that now we're hearing about this good growth and how our ceiling is higher, but I would just remind all of us that most of that growth has occurred because of the values increasing on the homes that are owned by the people who have already been paying the freight. Most of them who make less than a lot of the people working in the city. So if we take a 5.7% increase in the budget, and we take their home values that went up 5%, and then we do any of these options, A, B, or C, the tax bill is going to go up even more for the same people who've been paying the freight already. This is one of the arguments that came up during the school proposal as to how all this stuff had a multiplying effect. And here we are. That 5% growth is the same people who paid for the budget last year. And I think, and I encourage my counselors, we didn't cut that much out of the original budget, which was a big increase. I don't know anybody who's getting 5, 6, 7% raises, well, few exceptions that we've debated here. But in general, out in the private sector, people are usually getting 2, 3% raises. And the people that are paying these tax bills aren't getting that much of an increase on their money. So I would just like us all to step back and look at it from that macro perspective. It's good if our budget is below our ceiling. We shouldn't be taxing the people paying the freight up to that ceiling. And I mean, in $100,000 or $200,000 is essentially doing what we've always done, going like right up to the ceiling. And we shouldn't be going right up to the ceiling. In a budget this big, we should be able to figure out how to spend the money within the budget in the ways that the department heads prioritize and in the ways that the mayor prioritizes. But we can't just keep going back to the taxpayers and just adding and adding and adding. We've heard from how many of them over the school issue, and this is a microcosm of that big debate that we just had. And I just think we're being tone deaf if we just keep increasing it. And there's just no way to argue that the negative free cash is a positive situation. It isn't. In the way that we've done our budgeting, we've always depended on money being left in the various accounts because we know all the positions will not be filled timely due to any number of logistics. So historically, we have counted on that money being there. And the fact that it wasn't there and the fact that these deficits persist show that there's serious work yet to be done. And I think we need to continue to clean our own house before we go back to the taxpayers yet again and add $100, $200, $500, $600 more dollars to their tax bills. And I encourage us to live within the budget we approved. Thank you.
Counselor Lisi.
Thank you. I just want to thank Councilor McGivern for raising the point that we went over extensively in the tax classification hearing with the assessors about how we would have had $1.3 million of free cash this year had we not had to make up for deficits going back to 2014. And then the DOR has the ability and the authority to take that money away from our free cash and allocate it to repair those deficits, leaving us with a negative free cash balance of $463,000 for this year. And I think that in terms of our budget, I think having $1.3 million for multiple years in a row now of free cash means that we're doing really good budgeting because it gives us a responsible cushion. It's not saying we're overtaxing people without actually providing services and operating government. We are actually coming in with a little bit of cushion in case there are mistakes, in case there's things that we didn't accurately account for. And $1.3 million sounds like where we want to be at, $1 million, in terms of a cushion that's responsible for this city council to be generating through the budget. I think that overall, through the years, we've seen that the cost of living has increased, services have increased, the cost of services have increased. We have heard loud and clear from the public that they want this city council setting aside money for capital improvement projects. And I think that is the form of fiscal stewardship that the voters are counting on us for. The increase in levy capacity is a result of not only increase of home valuations because more and more people are moving to the city and buying homes, but there's also a significant amount of economic development happening in the community, and we are seeing an increase in new growth. And so I think that what we've heard over and over in this chamber is that we don't want to be taking money out of stabilization for individual operations expenditures. We've been advised against that many, many times, and instead, stabilization can be used for one-time use of capital improvement projects. So I think that there is a strong argument in favor of passing the supplement C, option C, which puts a large portion into stabilization. It allows us to set that money aside in terms of our rainy day fund. We could begin to accrue additional interest on our rainy day fund. And if we wanted to take money out for capital improvements, which there are many of, many needs that we have in the community, then I think then that's an appropriate use. I don't think we want to stuff everything into the stabilization account, because if we make multiple withdrawals from the stabilization account, we weaken, and I think we depress our bond rating and credit rating. And then finally, the last thing I'll say, again, cost of living and services are going up. I think that, I recognize that wages are not keeping pace with this, but I think that that's more a statement about the state of labor and how working families have or have not been able to organize vis-a-vis special interests in this country. And I think that there are, similar sort of dynamics locally. So my preference, and I'm open to, the feel of the body here, but my preference is option C, so that we don't get dinged with multiple withdrawals from stabilization, because we already understand that there will be the need to withdraw from stabilization for items that are not capital improvements.
Counselor Murphy.
Yeah, first of all, I would agree with Councilor McGivern and President McGee when he made the suggestion that we do put it into one account. And a few things. Number one, I think if we're trying to deal with any of these other options, with all of the varieties of things, we don't have the facts, we don't have all the information, we don't get to ask all the questions. If we send it to stabilization, which is what I would recommend, we are in a position to review each of the transfers that are going to be requested. We can say yes or no based on each one. We are maintaining our taxing capacity. If we don't use it, we can certainly rule that off next year and start looking at providing some relief for taxpayers if need be. If we were doing the stabilization fund, chances are the tax increase for the average homeowner would be about $186 or thereabouts for a single family. It'd be $196 for two-family, and probably around $230 for a commercial, depending on what classification we decide to put them on. But the idea of also not going anywhere near our full taxing capacity, I mean, I know right now we've got money that we took from the police reserve officers, which I'm assuming we're going to want to transfer back in at some point, because I think we want more police protection on the streets. We've got the DPW, and we want to talk about public safety with potholes, and the argument is constantly we don't have enough manpower. Now, maybe we just need some dedicated people to do it in a smaller fee, but those are things that we are not doing well right now that potentially we can do. But I don't think it is rational to expect us to take up all of the transfers on the first time we're hearing it, and yes, we can ask questions, but it's not the same thing as going item by item, which is what we would be doing if it was in Finance Committee. So I would entertain a motion that we accept option B, which would be a transfer to the, or
Well, hold on. There was a motion, it was seconded. However, Councilor Bresnahan for the first time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a couple thoughts. I went to the finance meeting on December 12th, and for those of you that want to verify what I'm saying, you can certainly, ask Ryan to get a CD of it. But a department head from the financial district showed up for the city of Holyoke, and these were some of the responses. I don't know, I think, I don't have that information. I'm not really sure. I'm not positive. I have no idea was the highlight for me, and I can't really answer that. So now, days later, we're looking at a financial situation that if anyone thinks not having money in free cash, negative money, is good, I'm glad you're not running my checking account. We've increased department sizes. I continue to question how business-friendly we all are. We see that Amazon's got traffic, so the planning board. I could understand if the planning board voted 4-0 on a business, or 5-0, pardon me. They voted 3-2. So it wasn't like this clearly a distinct problem. It was 2 of them voted for him, 3 of them didn't. So, I mean, that's a great message to send to business. Talk to any attorney that comes down into these chambers to represent a client, the Dunkin' Donuts on Hamden Street, for example. They're having multiple, double-digit meetings about getting a sign. Gary Rome, what this guy went through, God bless him for staying in Holyoke. God bless Bill for still working at the mall, coming up with innovative ideas, because nobody's shopping at the mall. You can do it all online. I mean, it's mind-boggling that we think we're in a good financial state, because we're not. We're not going to, we've asked for the debit card that somewhere existed, someplace that someone was using. We've never seen anything about that. We're buying Christmas trees that we don't have anymore. I mean, it's fiscal irresponsibility is what it is. Let's face the facts. If you think we're in good financial standing in the city of Holyoke, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. The new growth is very small. We're basically just saying open up pot shops and sell weed out the door. That's what we've come to, the great city of Holyoke, the industrial capital. That's what we've come to. We're just going to sell weed. We're going to grow it, sell it, have at it. Let's make money. Everybody's happy. That's just great. We still have massive problems with the infrastructure of the city of Holyoke, massive problems with our school systems. I mean, it's clearly, and people continue to talk about it's only, $198. It's only $260. I will never say that because I don't know what anyone's bringing home. I don't know how hard they're working. I don't know how many jobs they have. We have people that are living in houses down here that are trying to make a buck, trying to survive in the city of Holyoke. And our attitude is like, what's $200? Well, there's 7,000 homes in Holyoke. We'll just put $200 on them. Forget everybody else. Forget the huge industries that we have, like the mall, like the coal mine that's gone. I mean, now we're going to have a movie theater once again back at the mall because of the innovative thinking of Bill and his team at the Holyoke Mall. I mean, we're not in a good financial state, people. I'm sorry to say that, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Doom Gloom here, but the facts are the facts. A negative $400,000 in our free cash, and you want to increase people's taxes? People are going to be going out in droves. They're not coming for the schools. They're not coming because we're business friendly. Because if you talk to attorneys that represent other companies in other communities, they go to the planning board once. And it's a done deal. They get their permit, they're on their way. Again, the building department has increased, the health department has increased. The concept is good. I get it. We want to have strong public services, but when we're looking at our tax rate, when we're looking at our poverty rate, when we're looking at our sickness rate, when we're looking at the teenage pregnancy rate, all those come into factor. And Holyoke is in tough shape. And until we start being more business friendly, and I consider this to be Room 1's job, when we have a 3-2 vote on an issue, the planning board's got to change. You got to appoint people that want business in the city of Holyoke. I'm not saying to put up crazy businesses, but that's just absurd. The planning board has always been difficult. The planning department has always been difficult, even when I worked here. And the economic development office really needs a renovation. Thank you.
Councilor Lisi?
Just very briefly, I just do want to emphasize that, the advice that we've been given over the years is that we don't make individual operation expenditures at a stabilization, that will be a ding against our credit and bond rating. And then finally, the supplemental budgets that are coming in, they would never have been handled like individual transfers. What we do when we get a budget is we get everything and then we actually need votes to cut. So this supplemental budget, in my opinion, should be treated just like we do the budgets, and it's a vote to pass the entire package as opposed to, I mean, people can make votes and motions to cut individual line items, but that's separate from the vote for the complete package of option, A, B, or C. A or C in this case.
Counselor Sullivan.
Thank you. Even sending it to stabilization is going to bring us, the money will be set aside, will be put in the budget and bring us right up to our tax levy limit. We've got, number one, over the last 6 months, I've sat in finance and time after time after time after time, seen transfers made where monies were available. There was excess in this line item didn't happen, and we can transfer it here. The first thing I suggest is over the next 6 months, if there's any more of these line items out there that haven't been filled, get by the next 6 months without filling them. We've got pilot programs that haven't been negotiated in 10 years, insurance settlements that we've waited for years. We're still waiting on a cherry sheet. We have no idea what that number will be on the marijuana money. To just throw it in there and lay the burden on the taxpayer, regardless if it's in stabilization, it forces us to set a higher tax rate. So I wouldn't go with any of the three options, and I'd send the whole thing back and live within the budget we've established.
Counselor McGivern.
Just a reminder, the Department of Revenue is the one that suggested or told us the only place we can reserve any of this additional value is within stabilization. It's also been clearly pointed out that this withdrawing this money from stabilization will not have an impact or send a wrong message to Wall Street in terms of our bond rating. If we don't preserve some of this money this evening, it's gone. And again, for the reasons I think I explained earlier, reasons that we've been told by DOR, we have a negative free cash. That means we have nothing to get through the next 5 months except stabilization. Anything that comes up, the request is going to have to be from stabilization or a transfer within one account to the other. I suggest that we take a portion of the option B and put it into stabilization. If people don't want to do the $1.2 million, we can reduce this. I would suggest strongly that we reduce it by $215,018. That would put $500,000, save $500,000 from the tax ceiling, and put $944,202 into stabilization. It's money we're going to need for the next 5 months. Roads, snow removal. There's elections coming up. There's not enough money in the city clerk's budget to do the elections. We haven't had one request for overtime yet. We haven't had one request for court time yet. We haven't had one request for things that we normally see this time of year. If we don't like what comes before us, we don't have to vote for it, one at a time, with a good discussion in the Finance Committee first. Well, 2 years ago, we failed to do something on this evening. It cost the city $77,700 in interest because we couldn't set the tax rate and because the treasurer had to take a revenue anticipation note out for the third quarter. Is that what we're headed to this evening? We're out of time. It's December. I opened my remarks this evening. It's wrong that we're doing this in December. It's not our fault. It's wrong they're coming to us this late in the game. It's not our fault. It's wrong there's deficits in these financial accounts since 2014, and DOR is pointing them out, and nobody has done anything to correct that. It's wrong that we didn't appoint a city auditor when we had a chance to 5 years ago. That's our job to appoint the city auditor, and that's the mistake we made, therefore taking some responsibility for what's in front of us this evening. Let's do something that makes sense. Let's save some of this money so we can get through the rest of the year. This same discussion took place in Springfield a month ago. The headline was, Mayor Sarno saves the taxpayers money. If you read what that article said, the numbers were identical. Taxes weren't going down. Tax rates were being adjusted. The bills were going up. But the Republican reported what Mayor Sarno said. He sent, we're saving money. Why do we shoot ourselves in the foot over and over again? I agree with a lot of things that have been said this evening. We lost Colvis, one of the finest developers I've ever seen come in this chambers, with a good plan, not the plan maybe everybody wanted, but with a good plan to develop property on Lynch School. Now we're boarding up Lynch School because it's going to be sitting there for 10 years. We need a budget to provide service. We need some of this money to keep the budget intact for the next 5 months, 6 months, I'm sorry. Let's take a shot. We can't do line item by line item. If we don't pass the money for the superior officer's contract, that contract is done this evening. They go back to the negotiating tables. I'm not prepared to act on that because we still have questions, and I think that's what Council President was talking about, answers that we don't have yet.
Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think the people at home, I think they have questions. I think some of their questions are, what exactly is a stabilization fund? I know that it's common language for us to be talking about it, but it's basically a fund of money that the city council, the Holyoke City Council, can put into an account, essentially called the rainy day account, that's 10%, no more than 10% of last year's basically appropriation. We could appropriate 10% of the previous year's tax levy. So that's what the stabilizations fund is. And back since 1992, the city of Holyoke, we can use it for any lawful purpose that won't hurt our bond rating. So one last thing that people should know is it takes just a simple majority for us to put it in, but it takes a 2/3 vote for us to take it out. So having to take it out is much more difficult than putting it in, and that's a good thing. That's checks and balances. That's what we've been talking about. Some of the things that I've been talking about over the years is insurance. We have some great people, some great insurance companies, but look at the city of Springfield. They went on the GIC plan. It's a lot less expensive. Talking to those people, they're much more happier with that plan than the plan that they had before, and it's saving them money, and it's saving the city money. Now, you talk to certain people, and they won't budge. There's probably a lot of good reasons why they won't budge, but why not try to save the good folks in Holyoke some money? Why not try to save the city of Holyoke some money as well and get them on a bigger plan? That's one of the biggest things that we have in front of us is the health insurance. And we're also talking about dental insurance. Dental insurance is also expensive as well, and the good state's taking money out of our free cash for dental expense. I don't know. All I know is we can't keep taxing, the people of the city of Holyoke. They're not going to stay here. They're going to leave. I too, surprised as everybody brought it up tonight. Not everyone, a couple of people brought it up about the planning board. I was dumbfounded to read that article. I couldn't believe it. I just said, that can't be right. Now, keep in mind, the people at home, we don't appoint those people. Those people are not the people that Jim Leahy said, you're going to serve on this committee. That didn't happen. But reading that, I was just like, oh, God, what are we going to do? Thank you.
All right, so it's 8:15. I point that out for a couple of reasons. I've just been listening to everything that was said. Everyone made great points, but it's 8:15 on our last meeting before the break, before the holiday break, and we're provided 3 options at the last minute. We take up a whole, June to review line item by line item, every issue. We invite in every department head to deal with this and talk about every line item. At the last minute, you got to go through it quickly and get it done. That's not budgeting, folks. That's not how we do it. Councilor McGivern has pointed out correctly, the tax collector has to have this set. We have to vote on something tonight because then tomorrow they file it, and then by the next day the bills are going to go out. If we delay it by one day, you're going to miss the timeline. As we all know, when we missed the timeline last time, it cost the city money to do that. It's also not fair to our residents. Can I pay my bill? They were told prior, no, you can't. Well, you got to save the money. You don't get your bill. It puts them behind. That's not fair to a constituent. So therefore, we need to get the bills out correctly. I heard about legal. Legal and I have been going back and forth as with regards to the settlements, as far as, I'd say 2 to 3 meetings ago. There were requests to try and do executive session. Those things fell apart because we didn't have any money to pay out the legal things. It's a settlement. We have to approve it. We could say no to the settlement. To say we have to do it tonight and set up a line item to do it, to me, that's a red herring. That's false. We can also vote to say no to that settlement. And therefore, you have to go back to the negotiations anyways. So to me, the proper way of doing this is to pass something to get it out to allow the bills to go out. I was the one that brought up the suggestion, of which, as with anything I do in this chamber, it's a request to see if there's other things we can do to make sure we have things on time and that we get the information out to our constituents correctly. Of which I did receive an email back saying that what you're probably doing is illegal, and if it's not illegal, it's not something that we would support. Once again, I'm not telling someone to do something. I'm asking them to look into the option. I knew the option was available. And I said, I can't remember the line item that it goes to. It could be the overlay account. It could be another line item. I was wrong on the account, and I admitted that. I proactively went out and called the DOR myself and said, what can we do? They said, of course you can do it. Of course you can do it. It just has to go to stabilization. My very next question was, well, if it goes to stabilization and we pull it out to then pay for stuff, isn't that a negative to us? Well, if you stayed up front, Counselor, that you're putting the money in there to deal with the budget problems that you're having, which is to set the tax rate, get it on time, and get those out, those shouldn't be a negative to you because you've accounted for it. So I put it on the record. That's what I was asked to do. So to hear that, oh, now it's a ding and stuff, no, I'm not going to go down that path either because I did speak to the DOR. I also spoke to someone else who has familiarities with the stabilization account. The stabilization account, as we know it from when it was first set up many years ago, has changed over time through the legislation, of which there's ways to set up multiple stabilization accounts to account for trying to do these type of things. I asked the auditor, Tanya, to go back to Brian Smith to allow them to make sure we're in compliance with these type of things. Remember, we approved to have our auditor go out to a prior auditor to have consulting, to pay that fee in order to make sure we're caught up and we don't see these type of things happen again. So we've approved that. The money should be there. If we've ran out, come back again, we'll give another appropriation. The real issue is we have a tax rate. We have constituents who need this money. DOR said you can do it. So the motion on the table, and it was seconded, was to go with option B. Councilor Lisi, you have spoken twice. The council would have to suspend the rules so I speak to a third time. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Councilor.
Thank you. The only point I want to make here is that I'm not sure the DOR gets to tell us what sort of impact the withdrawals will have on our credit rating. I think the DOR can say, sure, you could do it. You're entitled to use it however you want as a municipality, but it's a different perspective than a bond and credit rating agency would have on that sort of expenditure. That to me is, they're just two different lenses, two different agencies giving a response to a question, and the response to the question is different depending on the perspective of those agencies.
I can honestly say I asked the question correctly.
Did
Councilor Leahy.
Brian Smith offer you any advice?
Once again,
Hunt.
Brian Smith is available to our auditor, of which we approved the funds for that. Councilor Sullivan, you've spoken twice. We'd have to suspend the rules, so you speak a third time.
So moved.
All those in favor? All those
Aye.
opposed?
Not going to speak, just a question. So what's before us is to vote on option B. Do we have to take the dollar amount proposed that's in that option B, or agreeing to that, then do we come up with a dollar amount too?
Well, a couple ways of looking at it. And one thing that this council has always said many moons ago, or many times I should say, is that we have not funded the stabilization account for many, many years. of which, if you can look at it this way, we put money in stabilization, we have a check and balance as to what gets paid out. If we don't pay it all out, the city council has funded the stabilization account for the first time in many years. Of which, for your question, if you want to make a cut, Councilor McGivern has said he would cut it by $215.
And, to Counselor Bacon's point earlier, that's a very insignificant number when we're that far up against the levy limit. By voting 215 less, that puts us at option B, still $1 million. Right up against the levy ceiling, and that's what we'll be setting the tax rate is based on that, correct?
Correct, but the excess staying in stabilization if we don't spend it all.
Still putting money in, if we don't spend it all, taking it from taxpayers now. Okay.
Councilor Bacon, I only have you down once, so Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to point out to my colleagues that if we do vote for the model as it's proposed, the only way that we're able to keep the business tax rate below 40 is to increase the residential tax rate, or to keep it the same in the face of 5% valuation increases. So it would be really, we're in a situation where we should be able to lower the tax rate for our residents if we live with the budget that we approved in June. We would be able to lower their tax rate in the face of their values increasing. So then their tax bill would remain more stable instead of increasing by the 200, the 300, the 400, or the 500. That's the opportunity that we have tonight, is to live within the budget that we approved, figure out how to live within the budget, and if there are emergencies, then come to the stabilization fund, because that's what it's for. But all we're doing by putting the money in the stabilization fund, by saying up front we're going to use it for operations, is just increasing the budget, in my view. So keep in mind the people who are paying the freight. If their values go up, the only way their tax bill remains stable is if the rate goes down. If we pass this on its face, you can't do that for the residences without exceeding $40 for the businesses, by the chart I'm looking at. Thank you.
Councilor McGivern spoke twice. He wants to speak again.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Just, Counselor Sullivan, when I made the proposal to amend B, or suggested, it wasn't seconded, and it was actually a suggestion for a possible amendment, I suggested that we reduce it by $284,982. And being that there's already $215,018 left on the table with the figure that's in front of us, that would increase the money left on the table up to $500,000 and preserving $944,202, which would become what we typically know as being free cash, which we design the way we do budgeting here in the city of Holyoke. And I don't say it's the best way to do budgeting to get through the year. The budget we passed has not $1 of capital outlay in it. And we know there are issues out there that need to be addressed. It has nothing for emergencies, it has nothing to look at in terms of getting through the rest of the fiscal year. It's to me, we're just about halfway through the fiscal year now. To preserve $944,000, $202 is something that I think is reasonable and something that makes sense. It's still below the tax ceiling. It's still keeping $500,000 on the table, and it's a compromise that I'm suggesting. But it's not what you suggested, it's more. I'm asking to reduce the $229,184 by $284,982, which will bring it down to $944,202, and again, leave $500,000 on the table.
Just a question.
Yeah, Councilor?
Just a question.
Sure.
Do we know how that would affect the rates?
Tony?
Where's Tony? Can you-
Tony, you have to
speak
come
into
up to the
microphone?
mic, please. Our assessor is here.
I could do the rates, have them for you in like 5 minutes.
And can I ask Tony one more question while he's here? So can you tell us off the top of your head how much the new growth was, not the value?
Our new growth was about $1.4 million or $5 million. So out of that, we realized between $600,000 and $700,000 around.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So with that, the first motion was to pass option B. It was seconded. Is there a second motion, Councilor McGivern, or?
I'll make it in the form of amendment.
Amendment.
If it's in the spirit of compromise, that we reduce the $1,229,184 by $284,982. If my math is correct, Mr. President, that brings it down to $944,202.
So motion is to cut it by $284,982. Is there a second to that?
Second.
And that is seconded. That would bring it down to $949,202.
$944, I believe.
$944. I have bad writing.
40, I don't know.
So with the, Councilor Murphy?
Can I just ask a question? Because I'm trying to figure out where we're getting the 500,000, so.
Because we're already
There's already $215,018 on the table with this proposal, below the tax ceiling.
Not with the stabilization fund, though. If the stabilization proposal, there was 118,000 left. And so if we do that and you add the 280, we'd be about 400.
Unused levy capacity is 215,018,
That's
correct?
it, that is
That's
in Proposition A, but in Proposition B, it's 118,000. So
I
if we're doing the
apologize.
stabilization fund as an amendment,
As I
we're
said, we
starting at
got too many
118.
options in front of us for December.
Amen.
I withdraw my amendment, Mr. President.
So
and
you're
go
back to the
forward with
original.
1.22 million.
Second.
Councilor Sullivan?
I'd like
Question?
to suggest an amendment that just, you know, to have the city tighten up its budget, still to do what Councilor McGivern suggested, that we approve $750,000. That'll give us some money into stabilization.
Second.
So motion is to reduce it to $750, and that was seconded.
Under discussion?
Under discussion, Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, I'm going to advocate for that as a, first of all, can I just thank Councilor McGivern, Joe, this is actually a great idea. So I appreciate your diligence on doing this, and I echo 98% of what you said. And Councilor McGee, I want to thank you for, Mr. President, for your diligence on this as well. The reason I support this $750,000 is as follows. I've just done some quick math on option C, and basically what I came up with is $500,581 that I actually probably would support. But I think I'm in a spirit of compromise. So my 507, I think Councilor Sullivan said 750, and I said 750, right, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So that's $250,000 over. And why did I say 507? Well, because it supports potentially the full police contract. And that includes the 118. We're going to get, Mr. Mayor, I think said, I know he said, it's going to be an accounting matter, and that's going to come back to city government. I'm paraphrasing that, Mary. Am I paraphrasing it right? Okay. Okay, so that supports the police, which is, as we know, it's a negotiated contract. You know, we don't have it before us, but we're going to have to pay them something. That also supports the potential for claims under the torts. It also supports the special counsel. I'm not saying it's all going to get paid. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's strong potential that we're going to have to pay that. And it also supports the streetlight energy deal, which, again, I'm not saying I'm going to support that because I voted to cut it, and I'm glad I did, because I want to hear some discussion about that. But it was, in my mind, supports that. Those four big items. And I think with Mike's amendment, the reason I seconded it is, so mine comes out to 507, 581. Mike's adds another, 50% to that to make it $750,000. I can, well, echoing what we all said 30 times, we don't like it. but these are the cards we're dealt, and I feel like that's a fair compromise. So that's why I second it. Thank you.
There's no discussion. The motion is to reduce option B to 750. Am I saying that correct, Counselor
Correct.
Sullivan?
Yep.
All those in yep.
Can we hear from Tony as to what the rate?
He's gonna have to go run and do that. That's why whatever we give him, he's gonna go run. He's gonna take about 5 to 10 minutes, he said.
But if we already approve it, I want to know,
At a
we're not
time.
going to have to increase
Yeah.
the,
No, 'cause you're not approving a tax rate or a levy yet. You're approving, yeah.
I understand that, But what I want to know before I vote is what the impact will be on this chart.
Okay,
Because there's two things I don't want to do. One is, I don't want to go over $40 on commercial. Two is, I don't want to increase the residential rate. So I want to know that answer before I vote on this amendment, please.
I can do that right now.
Thanks.
Okay, yeah, so it's at 750, is that's where it currently
Wait,
stands.
I do want to just,
Counselor?
before he leaves, because that, if we just go through the items that Counselor Bartley listed, it's not 750, it's actually 861. So if we cover all of the things that Counselor Bartley just listed off, not a lot of, line items, but when you look at the actual dollar amounts, that number is 861, not 750.
Counselor Murphy.
Yeah, just, if we were to do the entire stabilization fund in trying to keep the commercial rate under $40, we could do that and actually lower it, not by a lot, by, I think, 6 cents, if we were to raise the residential rate by 4 cents.
That sounds good to me.
And if we did that, we would be able to take in the entire amount of the 1.2. I mean, at some point, if any of these are, come to fruition, we're gonna need more than 750,000. Now, we get to vote on it, no question about it, but if in fact any of these come before us and come to fruition, and we put 750 in there, and we find out we need to spend $1 million, then we gotta find 300,000 from somewhere else. And I think we tried to make the budget pretty tight, and I'm sure, there was other areas we tried to make it tighter, but, that could keep the rate for commercial down, and try to be business friendly. We could lower it a little bit and certainly get to the rate would be 1929 again, and business would, if we lowered it, maybe 100,000 or something along that lines. But, I mean, we need to have money to eventually, come in January or February or March, we're gonna have to have some money where we're taking some money from somewhere to pay bills that are essential services. Potholes are essential services. Police protection is essential services.
Right.
They don't come cheap.
Right.
Counselor?
Thank you. But if we're in a period of financial austerity, which we should be, then we should be conducting the business of the city in that spirit. We all sat here and found over $1 million of transfers out of accounts at the end of the year from this to that to make everything work for all the variety of expenses. And that was in May, in June, if we all recall. So that money was sitting there. We need to tighten the belt. We need to manage the budget. We need to close for Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving, not Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and pay overtime on all the contracts. Like we're living where? I don't know. At the Trump Hotel? I don't know. But I mean, I work in the private sector. We don't get 3 days off at Thanksgiving. I don't know. Does anybody else who works here get that? And the people are paying for that, and they see that happening. And they're already going to be paying the tax rate as it sits now on a 5% increase in their value. So if you increase their tax rate, you're just adding more to the more. That's what you're doing. You're taxing them twice. They get to pay more on the more value, and then they get to pay more because their tax rate goes up. And that's why I just think we need to be informed before we vote. If we can achieve that, I could probably be swayed on the 750, but if we can achieve that. I look at for fairness.
Counselor Barnard?
Yeah, can we have the mayor kind of answer some of these questions that are still kind of lingering here? If we can,
Which questions, Counselor?
clarity of, my question right now is is there any way we can consider the budget that the number B proposed, and then if it's not needed, we will replace what it's not used? Or either vice versa, if we go ahead and propose the total amount by using from the rainy funds, that we replace as soon as it builds up again, replacing it, that it's not left empty, that the budget is left empty, so.
The rainy day fund won't be left empty. Whatever we're putting in, we're in essence looking to use for filling the holes that we're saying are of necessity in a supplemental, and anything else that we don't know of as of yet. So that amount won't drain the entire rainy day fund. It'll only be allocated toward whatever number we're looking to. If there's more than that, then you'd have to look to other parts of the budget, or you would have to look to see if there's more coming out of stabilization. But it's not going to drain the account, no.
Okay.
Can I ask for a suspension of rules to say a few things?
You're still under suspension.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. I just wanted to just repeat a couple of things that the counselors had said, that it looks like folks are coalescing around option B, which is certainly an okay path. I would just urge the council to consider appropriating all of it to the stabilization fund. And I think to your point, Counselor McGee, that anything that isn't then appropriated from stabilization remains in stabilization, continues to earn interest, and it will be the first time that there's been an actual deposit endorsed by the council into stabilization in some time. And so I think that is a good thing. I can say with confidence that $750,000 is not going to be enough to get us to the end of the fiscal year. We'll be back here in the spring, as some councilors have suggested. And this will be the first time in years that the city council has left money on the table when we actually have needs in the city: personnel, public service needs, infrastructure, capital projects. Cinder sat here a few months ago and said we should be taking advantage of every revenue source that comes to the city because we have needs. And we have an opportunity tonight to do that. And I think it's important that we go forward with 100% of option B. Everything you see in the supplemental budget request are things that we've actually talked to department heads about their needs between now and then. And as some have suggested, there will be unanticipated expenses, whether it's an awful winter or other things that will pop up between now and then. And I just want to make sure we're in a position of strength, not a position of weakness a few months from now.
So the issue would be is we're going to need a number. If you vote on a number now, Tony can run back and do it. If it fails, it's going to be another number. You can run back and forth every 10 minutes to try and come up with a number. On the table now is 750. That was seconded on that amendment. So the motion is to reduce option B down to 750. The clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting to drop it down to 750.
Bresnahan?
No.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
No.
Lisi?
No.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy? Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Valentine?
No.
Bartley?
Yes.
7 yeas, 5 nays.
So, because it's supplemental and we haven't done this one.
That's a winner.
Majority.
That's a winner, Mr.
Majority.
President.
Majority.
So 7.
2/3 to take out.
That's a winner.
Two-thirds.
Checkmate.
So
Check, done.
seven votes. You reduced it to 750. Now the motion would be to accept.
Motion to reconsider our actions.
Motion made, second to pass the first reading.
Second.
Motion is to pass the first reading. No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion would be
Pass the second reading.
pass the second reading. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for option B at 750.
Bresnahan? No. Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
No.
Lisi?
No.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy? No. Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Valentine?
No.
Bartley?
Yes.
7 yeas, 5 nays.
You need 9 for transfer, don't you?
It's not a transfer, it's
Oh,
a
that's right.
supplemental
It's a
budget.
supplemental budget, that's
You're-
correct.
We
So
were told
seven
we
is
have line
correct.
item controlled by the DOR, it's a supplemental budget.
As
It's a
I said,
majority
Joe,
vote.
we have never done this late in the game,
I
so,
hope we never do it again.
Oh, how long you been here now?
Second that.
all right. So with that, we now can have Tony go to 750. And he'll come back to that. Public comment is done. Communications 4, a letter addressing from the mayor from financial position, levy capacity, free cash. I do believe everyone will receive this.
Receive.
Finance.
Oh, sorry, must have said finance.
Second.
5 is from the mayor, letter appointing Robert Edwards to Commission on Disabilities. That would have to go to public service, correct?
Look,
Yeah, it's not doing it.
since the mayor's here, can we ask questions about this?
Yeah.
It's going to go to committee, so you don't debate if you want
Got to go to
committee.
public service, right?
Yeah.
Just as long as he comes to the meeting.
I'd ask the question.
Mr. President?
Ask the question.
Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, just,
He's gone.
Ask the
Yeah,
question.
Counselor Bartley has the floor, please.
just under discussion, I think we should send it to public service, because we already got a long agenda
Sure.
for in front of us.
That's true.
So
Good point.
let's just move it forward.
So to public service, all those in favor?
Aye.
From the city clerk, the November 19th and December 3rd minutes of the meeting. Everyone's reviewed them, no issues.
Motion to receive?
Motion is to receive. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 8 is from the auditor. It's the MOA for the Hoyoke Police Supervisors, IBO, local
You skip 7?
49.
7. Yeah, get to 7.
What was that?
7, please?
7.
Oh, I skipped 7. I apologize.
Item 7, make a
Even my
motion-
glasses, I'm still losing it.
You don't want to talk about that anymore.
See, I'm all done. From Anthony DeLude, our assessor, communication from the DOR.
Make a motion to receive for the committee, a copy to the Committee on Finance.
Receive and a copy
Second.
to finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Now, number 8, which would be the MOA. This was in finance already, or?
Yeah.
Was.
Right.
No, it's the
So-
revised one, Mr. President.
Advised.
It is, so send it to,
Finance.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Number 9 from PARAC, appropriation for fiscal year 2021. Motion be received, refer to
Receive.
finance.
Finance.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Mr. President, can we just table 10 until we go into ordinance committee, please? Just table it for
So,
now.
table it?
Yeah, just because we'll deal with an ordinance.
All right,
In the
so
ordinance report.
motion is to table item 10. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 11 is from letter regarding a notice of community outreach meeting for marijuana establishment.
Motion received.
So motion is to receive.
Copy of ordinance, I suppose.
Copy of ordinance, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 12 is from the friends and family of Hoyoke Police Officer DiNapoli. It's an invitation to the candlelight vigil, which will be December 22nd, 2019, and it's the 20th anniversary of his passing. Let me see if there's a time here.
4 o'clock.
4
Receive.
o'clock.
4 o'clock?
So 4 o'clock, December 22nd.
Oh, it's a
Motion is to receive.
Sunday.
See?
Favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No, it's not, it's DGR.
13's a duplicate,
Yeah.
so that was with 8, so that was already received and referred to
President, if
finance.
I could just ask a question, can we refer this to finance too? Because these are coming from the auditor, and I'm not too sure why they're coming from the auditor. We have a copy from the city solicitor who negotiated on behalf of the mayor in the finance committee. And I think these are just to connect dollar amounts, which we couldn't get last week, from the city. But just in case, can we refer it to finance so we can at least look at them?
Yep, so
Second.
they are referred to finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Petitions, 14, for recreational medical, or not medical, recreational marijuana.
Ordinance.
Second.
So ordinance, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And then a petition for renewal for home occupancy at
DGR.
97. It's a renewal.
No,
Everything good?
We check. All the taxes are current. Motion would be to grant the renewal.
Moved.
Second.
And a roll call for these? Oh, I always forget. Motion is to grant it. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're granting the renewal with conditions.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBrun Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Valentine.
Yes.
Bartley.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you've approved the renewal. President's report, I know we don't want to make it too long. I've only got 30 things. I'm just kidding. First up is, and I said it last time, but I have to say it now because you now have a deadline. The Christmas party for the city council is January 4th. However, we need a head count by Friday. A few have emailed in to the clerks saying yay or nay, and with a guest or not a guest, you got to get in by Friday, or I'm just going to say that's that. Also, since we're going to do tax classification, if you vote for a rate and you're signed on to it, remember there's a new rule with the DOR, which is you have to go into the computer and do your signature. However, we have a out for that because last year the computer was not working. It just didn't work on their end, and the clerk did it anyways. She has all the passwords that you gave last year. The request would be just grant her to do it again, and she can sign off for you like she did last year. If you, it's all about options.
I want to change my password.
It's not illegal. Also, I want to, let's see here, we did talk about,
Did you note that it's
Monday, January 6th is the inauguration. It'll be here starting at 10 a.m. upstairs. It's a little different because there's no mayor in this one. It's the city council and school committee. So 10 o'clock upstairs, January 6th. Also to Councilors Valentin and Councilor Bresnahan, you guys are leaving. Hopefully there's no special meeting to drag you back on December 31st, just before midnight. For that, I want to thank both of you for your service. It's been a pleasure working with both of you. Learned a lot from both of you, and I can't thank you enough. As I said, unfortunately, a friend of ours, a counselor, had an issue tonight. Even though you're leaving and you might be going somewhere else, maybe DC or something, who knows? You are a friend. You'll always be a friend and a family to us. Once a counselor, always a counselor, like I like to say. So I wish you the best on anything you do. But I did learn this from Kevin. Kevin, before he left, gave a beautiful 10-hour history lesson. It was awesome. I timed it. He talked about the gavel. He talked about all these things that the council had, of which one thing he did talk about were these badges. Remember those badges that he held up? And it was something that the councilors got because you ran for office, you got elected, you did a lot of great work, but then it got lost in the shuffle. And then we approved having those come back, and a prior chief said, Todd, I don't care what you approve. Then we got a new chief, a really nice one. And he said, you know what, Todd, it's a great piece of history. Why would we lose it? So saying that, I'm going to give this to Ryan here. It's my Christmas present to you. No, I didn't buy you a Christmas present. And if Ryan can pass them out, and I'll go over here.
Oh.
The badges are back.
perfect timing.
My name's on my
Is this food?
91. I got one. Maybe it is. Is that big? I got a little one that fits my wallet.
I have my original. Come on, pass them down, Michael.
And
No original.
If it's not your name, I just ask that you pass it along. It has your name on it. I once again, thank you to the chief. Thank you
Michael
very
needs bigger
much
glasses.
for doing this.
Even with my glass, I can't.
It's very nice. I said I sat with him. He said absolutely that's something you don't want to lose that type of history. And we as a council voted for it as part of something we wanted back.
Thank you. Good, how are you? Oh, yeah. And Merry Christmas.
And I'm not going to talk about the gavel, Kevin. And with the new counselors coming on, we'll get them one as well. That has been confirmed tonight as well. With that, as I always said when I first took over, I open it up to you as well. It's not just about me giving reports. Anyone else have any things that I might have
President,
missed?
just had a quick question. You know, Springfield City Councilors, the good people they are, they got these nice leather cases, nice little wallets with theirs. Where are those?
Budget cuts. All right, anything else?
Springfield City Councilors also have laptops.
And $25,000 a year.
There's one right there in the audience asking.
And the phone.
No, it's before that.
Counselor Bartley has a laptop. We can all share. Counselor Valentin.
Just really quick, I'm not going to do a Counselor Ramon move and get up there and be there for 30 minutes, but even though what he said was very nice, but I want to take the opportunity to very quickly just thank my colleagues, but also the folks of the city of Holyoke for giving me the opportunity to serve this city in this way for the last 6 years. Excuse me. In this chamber, of course, we have not always seen eye to eye. That's never expected. And it's not what I came in here to do, but I think that there's been some really good conversations that have happened here in the last 6 years, and so I want to value that and take that with me. I think that one of my favorite memories here, not at that moment, but it is now, because it was stressful at that point, but one of the biggest pieces that I'm proud of in terms of my 6 years here is the fact that in my first term as a brand new counselor, I took the risk of having conversations about bringing a local option meals tax into this city. And, there were 15 of us at that point. That night, 2 people were absent, 2 people voted no, but 11 voted yes. And we only needed 8. And people kept saying to me, don't do this, it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen, businesses are gonna be upset. And the reality is that 11 of us, and not everybody's in this room right now, but 11 of us voted in favor of that. And because of that vote that we took that night, that I'm very proud of, we bring $500,000 into this city that actually stays here in the city for infrastructure needs. So it's just a really simple example of how we are here for 2 things, in my opinion. One is to be a voice for our constituents, but the other one is to find ways in which we can creatively move the city into a better place in many ways, financially, socially, etc. But that's definitely one of my favorite memories of the last 6 years. And, I've had, I've had plenty of examples that I can share that I won't because of time, but I do want to take a minute, even though I appreciate many folks in these chambers, I really do want to take a minute to thank Councilor Lisi because, sorry, I'm losing my voice, Councilor Lisi, because even before I was sworn in, she took me under her wing and was filing orders as I was campaigning throughout Ward 4 to improve, quality of life issues for the constituent in my ward when I wasn't even sworn in yet. And she didn't have to do that, but she did. And so I'm appreciative of her as a friend, as a colleague, as a mentor. And so I want to say thank you specifically to Rebecca, but of course to many other folks here. And last but not least, I just want to say that some of my favorite moments in here has been the times when these chambers have been filled with folks for public comment, and it's either things that I agree with or that I don't, but the reality is that people took the time to be here, to put themselves out there, and to let us know how they feel. So I guess at this point, as of January, I may be on the other side of the rail, so, because I'm definitely not gonna be on this side. I'm very proud that Libby Hernandez is replacing me in this seat. I'm sure she'll do a great job, so I look forward to being on the other side of the rail. And I also look forward to the day where these chambers look more like the city of Holyoke. I want more women in here. I want more people of color in here. I want younger people in here. And that's what I hope for the future of Holyoke, and so that we can continue to move the city forward in the way that we love it and that way that we want to see it progress. Thank you.
Any further updates or anything that we've missed or comments? Council President.
Thank you. It's been a blast. Thanks very much. Appreciate everybody. Thanks to my wife for putting up with me and my kids for me leaving the house. I'm relieved that I'm going to spend a lot more time with my family and not be stopped at Stop and Shop as much. But no, it has been a blast. I love the city, and I do anything for it. Thanks for the businesses for being patient. And just thanks, it's been fun. None of us have, all of us have argued at different times, and as Joe first said when I first came on, he remembers the day where they would fight it out and go have a beer afterwards. And we've done that, and I appreciate that, breaking bread with you guys. It's been fun. Thank you.
I forgot to thank my wife, who's actually in chambers. She came in just because it was my last meeting.
That's
I didn't know she was going to be here.
Yeah,
She just came in.
You can see my wife doesn't love me that much. She's
I'm sorry.
I
Thank
kept
you,
looking
Miriam.
for her back there. But.
So
Todd?
we were saying stuff in
You're
order to
leaving
get
too,
Tony to
Pete?
get in here.
No, not leaving.
No, Counselor Tallman. I just want to make sure everyone's got, did Tony give everything?
Yeah, we got it. We give a chance to look at our values here, our numbers to what we're going to talk about. But I just want to thank Josie and Dan for the service to the city. You know, it's not easy. We run for office. We take a lot of hits from people, and people are really, want something from us and what we need to get done, And I really am thankful for two people that really have dedicated their time and their thoughts to the city of Holyoke. And I've known Dan all my years and recently met Josie over the years in these chambers. And, you're both very dedicated to your job and to the city of Holyoke and your love of Holyoke, and it shows. A lot of times you both are very outspoken on issues, and a lot of times I'm sitting here and listening, and sometimes I wish I had that courage to speak up like you both have done over the years. And it's been really an honor to serve with both of you, and I wish you all the best in whatever happens in the future, your future endeavors. But you did show in your work and your dedication to this community what it means to be a true citizen of this community, and the love you have for Holyoke, and for that I'm grateful for the work that both of you have done over the years. So thank you very much.
Well said.
Good summary.
With that, we can go on to ordinances, or ordinance committee. Committee on Ordinance was referred a petition from the Holyoke Mall, new special permit for height limitation. Recommended that special permit be approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. My understanding is, in my absence, and thank you to Councilor Bartley for chairing the committee while I escaped for a while, that the committee took up this special permit request so that the height limitation could be exceeded, so that the Holyoke Mall can have a theater complex developed there. And my understanding was that the application was complete, that the committee heard the applicant and was all favorable on approving this so that the mall can continue to innovate and keep a customer base for our city. Thank you.
All right, Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, I guess I'll just make a motion to receive and adopt the committee report and to grant a special permit. Do I need special language for a special?
No,
Okay.
motion is to receive, adopt,
And grant the special
to
permit?
grant the special permit. If there's no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Do
If
you
you're
want
voting
discussion
yes,
of
you-
it?
What?
You want a discussion of it?
Oh, I didn't know, I thought you would let her and you were just saying go. But yes, Counselor Bartley, if you want to.
Yeah, just to tell you what's happening here. So we had an ordinance meeting. I want to thank the chair for pulling this together, turning it around pretty fast. I think because this was just filed a short month ago, and we took it up to this December 10th, and here we are a week later, and got it before us. So Mr. Rogalski, who's the manager of the Holyoke Mall, who's with us tonight, he gave us, and we had a public hearing. We opened up the public hearing. We had a good discussion. The company's called Cinemark. They have a signed lease. It's in the former Sears property. It's going to be about 88,000. Well, it's going to be there's 88,000 square feet on the upper level. The Cinemark's going to take up about 50,000 square feet. It's going to be a 9-screen movie theater, stadium seating. The issue before us is the height of the roof, and that's the special permit that we're considering to grant Pyramid. Mr. Rogalski advised us that they don't think they're going to need to go up to 80 feet, but they just wanted the room just in case. I think that all members present supported it. There was one member of the public who was in a butter. He came, and that member of the public supported it. I think there were some really good questions as whether or not expansion is going to be necessary up there. Mr. Rogalski said he wasn't sure, but they would need to get a new permit if there's expansion. You might be interested in knowing, Cinemark has another property at the Hadley Shopping Center. Let's see if they have some, and of course Riverdale Road, and that's where they are. So I don't remember the last time Holyoke had a movie theater. It might have been the last time we had a theater when it was at the mall in the lower level in the Cafe Square. But I can't say if I'm right or wrong on that one. So the committee, all members present, supported fully, and I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? No, if there's no further questions, the motion is to receive, adopt, and grant the special permit. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for approving the special permit.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi? McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the special permit. What was that?
Did I get my name pulled first?
Yeah, I did that, sorry. Sorry.
Second time in 8 years. The last meeting, I get pulled first.
Last meeting.
I never get pulled, I've never sit down.
Second time in 8 weeks. I think so.
The first 6 years, only since you became city clerk, actually.
16B, committee on ordinance was referred, that's section 62-37, hours of operation for peddlers and solicitation be amended, have recommended, and be adopted.
So the motion is to receive and adopt and pass the first reading?
Motion is to receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Under discussion, Counselor Bartley, or.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Bartley.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is a really good order. Rebecca filed some months ago, and where is it? Well, it's here.
I know what it is.
I mean, I know what it is too. Why is it not right in front of my notes here? That I took copious notes. At any rate, sorry, Mr. President. We had, this has come up before on numerous occasions on hours of operation for vendors and food carts and things of that sort. So that was, I think, the genesis of this order, and we had a good discussion the last meeting, but we did the hard work the prior meeting where we put into legal language. The law department did, I think, a really commendable job putting it to, I mean, I said to Crystal that night, I mean, this is really straightforward, clear legal language. 2 sentences, like bang, she's got it nailed. And we made one amendment on the floor. Councilor Murphy said instead of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., we said to 9 a.m., and we all agreed with that. So the ordinance reads, it shall be unlawful for any person to peddle or solicit before the hour of 9 a.m. on any day or after the hour of 6 p.m. of any day, period. All other hours of operation shall only be allowable by condition of a special permit of the city council. I mean, there's 2 sentences right there, crystal clear, by Crystal Barnes. So that was that. So we approved it unanimously.
Any further discussion? No. Motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading?
Motion is pass the second reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion that the passage be ordained?
Motion is that the passage be ordained. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the new language.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the
Problem. No,
ordinance.
thank you.
Finance. I know the police are here for this in order to answer questions, so which one's theirs? 17A? Joe, is it 17A or?
The police are here for an incoming order, I believe.
Oh, I thought they had a grant as well on here.
Now, 17A is the planning department, and 17B would be the DPW.
PW, yeah.
Is it a late file, Joe, or is it 24?
There's actually,
Okay.
I don't know if it's a duplicate, but it's item 24 and 30.
Yeah,
Make a
there is
motion to suspend the rules and go to 24 and 30.
Motion to suspend the rules, take up item 24, and I do believe 30, 30 as well. It's a duplicate, so we'll take them up as one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So I have it, so, okay, so we're caught up then. So, from Councilor McGivern, or that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the City Council hereby accept the provisions of the fiscal 2020 Traffic Enforcement Grant, and then do the appropriate accounting and receipts and expenditures. Motion would be receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Mr. President, I think, like everyone, I received an email requesting that we at least discuss and possibly act on the receiving of this grant and the granting of the grant to be used due to some time-sensitive issues with the grant itself in the end of the calendar year, I believe. I would suggest that we suspend the rules and ask Sergeant Hart or the chief to address their request. We will note, last week, the Finance Committee did meet with some department heads, and we will continue to meet with department heads about deficiencies in the management of grants. And that message is, I think, is going to be heard both from the mayor and the city council for several months to come. A lot of our deficiencies that, forced us into what we did this evening were grants that had deficiencies within them. Not just the police department, there were other departments, but the police department was one. So I suggest we have a rule or an ordinance, I believe it was one of Councilor Bartley's amendments, that we get reports when a grant is ended and get reports from the individual departments as to how the grant was used and how it went. I think when we start and agree to accept the grant, we're going to have a little swearing-in ceremony where a department head or a designee is going to swear that they will manage this grant as the language has always said throughout the existence of the grant and balance it at the end of each fiscal year accordingly with the auditor. But with that in mind, I suggest that we ask the Sergeant Hart to let us know how they're going to do that and why you need this thing passed tonight.
Motion is suspend the rules to allow the police to answer questions. All those in favor? All those opposed? Is the mic on? There's a switch. All right.
Okay. To answer your question, yes, it is time sensitive. The mobilization right now, that's started, I believe, December 10th. In order to approve the grant, we'd have to at least do 8 hours of this mobilization, which concludes January 20th. So if it's not approved and a fund set up by January 20th, or for us to get 8 hours of enforcement in, then we'll withdraw the grant.
For everyone here and at home, the Hoyoke Police Department has been awarded the fiscal 2020 Traffic Enforcement Grant in the amount of $16,000 for the year. There is no match. I'm correct on that?
Correct.
So here, as Officer Howard said, is they're trying to get the $16,000. You need it by a certain time frame in order to do the enforcement. Otherwise, the grant just goes back. We don't get it. I will be fair on this. Is right away he emailed it once they did receive it and said, I know normally it goes to finance and everything else. What do you want me to do? I said, please send the communication out to all the counselors right away, telling them the issue. And if they have questions, they can go right to you, and that was done right away. So this is one of the things that does happen with grants. They come in late, not a fault of yours, but he did get the information out to everyone as soon as possible. So I want to thank you for that. Any questions for the police? Councilor McGivern, then Councilor Bacon.
Sergeant, can you just tell us the amount of the grant and is there any matching funds?
It's $16,000 and there are no matching funds. However, out of that $16,000, I believe I put in the email as well, $12,000 of that $16,000 is available now. The other $4,000 hasn't been awarded as of yet, but we're hoping to get that sometime in the spring.
And Sergeant, And Chief, do you swear that this will be balanced at the end of the year quarterly with the auditor?
Yes, we swear.
Thank you. We're going to hold you to that.
And just to echo your concerns about reports, we do, and Counselor Bartley as well, and all the counselors, they mentioned that about reporting back on the grants. The last year's grants, I just submitted the final reports, so you'll soon be getting the tallies on the traffic grants and the step traffic enforcement grants as well.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Counselor Bacon, then Counselor Bartley.
Oh, I just wanted to make a quick comment that I totally support this, because I think when we focus on the quality of life things like the traffic enforcement and the trash and all those kind of things that don't seem like they're the most important things, it all contributes greatly to the positive quality of life here in the city. So, thank you.
Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Counselor McGivern and Counselor Bacon said. I also want to credit Counselor Leahy, because Counselor Leahy and I co-filed that
Thank you.
order. Also, Mr. President, may I just add something? Sure. I was wondering if the chief and the sergeant would consider, just to consider, well, first, when I say echo what Counselor Bacon said, again, I can't thank HPD enough for the work it did. Jeez, John, last summer, I remember now, it was last fall, I just losing track of time, tracking down the bandit there. So that was, and to have HPD and all flying around and state police, it was unbelievable in Elmwood. It was incredible. Incredible. Everybody was really, really impressed and proud. I was just wondering if we consider for a future budget a line item in there, because the importance of the police department and the fire department is obviously the two most critical departments in the city. It would be interesting if we could have a line item in our budget, in those two specific budgets, because they're the biggest grant drivers for matching funds. So just have a specific, whatever code you have, and just have some, I don't know what generally what your match, it's very rare when you have a matching fund, Sergeant. I mean, generally you don't have a match. But there are times when you're gonna have one, and if there was a budget line item to that effect, Sergeant, that would, I think, well, it would help me. I'm just one person, so I just want, through the chair to the sergeant, just to consider that for future. Thank you.
There's no further discussion. The motion was to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading?
Motion is to pass the second reading. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the grant.
Bresnahan? Leahy?
Yes.
LeBrun Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
11 yeas.
With your vote, you approve the grant. All set?
We have a couple more items. I don't know if you want to suspend the rules on the agenda.
Yeah, look at that. 5 and what? Six.
If you needed to discuss them, transfer for a mechanic.
Those weren't time sensitive, so those will go to finance to have you come in. All right, so back to 17A.
Like to make a motion to take number,
I'm sorry, Counselor, I apologize.
motion to take number 23 out of order.
Motion to suspend the rules, go to item 23.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That the city council set the tax rate for fiscal year 2020. Are we getting new numbers or
We're
coming in?
getting new numbers, Mr.
All right,
President.
so there was an error, we're getting that fixed. Correct?
Yeah, may I just,
Bless you.
Bless you.
we don't have a correct number, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, we don't have a correct number.
It was
I didn't get
incorrect.
If, you know, I'm not,
Counselor Bartley?
I was, oh, come on.
Well, wait, the numbers
Yeah,
aren't correct, so
yeah,
we're
the
waiting.
the numbers aren't correct, Mr.
So
President.
we're
They're-
waiting. So we'll go
they're-
back to 17A.
The numbers on here are inflated.
Yep. Well,
Yeah,
I don't
so,
want to put on the wrong numbers.
no,
It's the wrong number, Mike.
so,
When are we going to find
They're gonna come
They're
back
doing it
in with
right
new
now.
numbers, they're running them now. So we'll leave 23 on the side, go back to 17A, which is the Committee on Finance. 17A is Chapter 44, Section 53A. The City Council hereby accept the Planning Assistant Grant. Motion that it be. Motion
Second.
to receive, adopt, pass first reading, or discussion. Councilor McGivern.
The Finance Committee met last week with Marcus Morero, our Planning Director / Economic Development Director. This grant is a total of This grant is a total of $39,465. There is an in-kind contribution required of $10,000. That would be for the already noted in their budget for services provided by staff members. What this grant will do will bring a number of students from Harvard with some teachers in to look at the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs and to look at a study in some of the areas of what's going on with the environmental changes and things of that nature. Mr. Morero spoke in favor of the grant. The committee asked a number of questions, and the committee recommends that we accept the grant. We did talk to Mr. Morero about making sure that there are no deficiencies in any of his grants at the end of the fiscal year. We had the auditor with us, and she said that the planning department is very good with their grant management.
Thank you. Councilor Leahy.
Yes, thank you. Joe, did you tell him about the, that order that, thank you, that Councilor Bartley and I filed pertaining to a report when it's all said and done?
I can answer that.
I forget if go ahead.
He did say at the end of the study, when everything is done, they will have in essence, a revealing of all their findings at call it a press conference or what have you. So they will be providing that to the public, and then it'll come to the city council as a communication.
Okay, yeah.
So they are doing both.
Yeah, I want something reduced to writing. I don't want to see a press con, or
No. In essence, the students, along with the teacher, will have a meeting for the public, go through their findings and everything else, and provide that information. So there will be a report, is the answer.
And on top of that, to answer Councilor Leahy's question, I think if I'm on the Finance Committee next year, that the Finance Committee will be, all grants will be reminding department heads or their designees of that, both that order you and Councilor Bartley spearheaded, and also, as I said, that they will have these grants balanced at the end of the fiscal year or take it out of their budget somewhere.
one last thing too, if I could.
Yeah, Councilor.
Now, unfortunately, I was down in Boston, visiting a family member, but, did you guys see the scope of work? Because I'm always cautious about, outsiders coming in and, not putting Holyoke in the best light. Did you see the actual reduced to writing scope of work, what they're gonna be doing?
Verbally, not in writing, but, well, I'm sorry, except for the grant that's filed that Councilor McGee has up with him.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is to pass the second reading. The clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the grant.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBrun Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi. McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Dakin,
Yes.
Valentine,
Yes.
Bartley.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approved 17A. Going back to 23, motion was suspend rules, go out of order. That was approved. 23, we're back to the city council set a tax rate for fiscal year 2020, of which we do have the new sheet provided by the assessor. Any questions on this one as we review it to make sure it has the correct numbers?
I have 3 of them. How do I tell which one's the correct one?
The last one I gave you.
I know, but I was talking
Which
and
is what?
they just put them in front of me, so I want to make sure that.
It's the one that has the estimated levy at $55,442,051.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does everyone have that correct one in front of them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
As we know, you can do three motions for one of the rates, and then we go with the third to the first. So I didn't make that rule up. I think it was Kevin. Just kidding. So Counselor Lisi had her hand up first.
Thank
Counselor?
you. I'm making a motion for a SIP shift of, I forget if we do the first column or the second column, 1.6.
I'm going to second that.
So 1.6. It was seconded. Counselor Tallman, you had your hand up second.
Yes, I'd like to make a shift of 1.605.
That was seconded. Is there a third?
Mr. President?
Up.
Can you just remind folks what our current rates are so that they can have the reference, especially those at home?
Your question,
$19.29 for residential and $39.86.
96.
So for at home, residential is $19.29. Commercial is $39.86. That's current. So first one was 1.6. The second one was 1.605. Counselor Sullivan, you're a third.
I'd make a motion for a shift of 1.595.
And that was seconded. So for those who are at home, I will read make sure I get them all correct. So the first one was for 1.6, which represents residential at 1911, commercial at 3958. The second one was 1.605, which represents residential at 1907, commercial at 39.7. And then the last one, the third one, was 1.595, which represents residential at 19.16 and commercial at 39.45. So we start with the last one first, and if there's any comments, do you have comments? If not, we can go right to the vote. Seeing no comments, the clerk will call the roll for setting the tax rate at 1.595.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy?
No.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
No.
McGee?
Hold on. Sorry.
Last one is first, right?
The last one is first, yeah. So so for clarity, so everyone,
Just want to make sure I was on the right one.
1.595. The last one goes first, and you work your way back.
One.
So, do you want to start over? I apologize.
Please, I think you would.
Yeah, would you start over? I'm sorry, Madam
Yeah.
Clerk. I apologize, so.
That's okay. Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy?
No.
LeBron Martinez?
No.
Lisi?
No.
McGee?
No.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
No.
Bacon?
No.
Valentine?
No.
Bartley?
No.
4 yeas, 8 nays.
That vote does not pass. The next one is the second one. It was 1.605. There's no discussion. The clerk will call roll. If you're voting yes, you're voting for the 1.605.
Bresnahan?
No.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
No.
Murphy?
No.
Sullivan?
No.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
No.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. 7 yeas, 5 nays.
So you need 7.
Winner.
Good.
So with that, you've
With the
approved
1.6, but that's okay.
1.605, so residential will be 1907, commercial will be 39.7. Once again, for those who have voted for it, the clerk can sign off due to that new sign-off requirement by the DOR. If you give permission, she can do that electronically for you.
You can do it. you check my
No,
email, too?
you don't need my password.
voted no.
I voted against the tax increase.
Only the yeas.
Actually, a tax decrease.
Decrease, yeah.
No, I voted against the increase.
Okay. So with that, we're now to 17B. Committee on Finance accept the provisions of the Energy Technical Assistance Program grant. Recommended that be adopted. Motion is to
Make
receive,
motion to receive,
adopt.
pass first reading.
Pass the first reading.
Second.
Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Mr. President, we had Bob Parent, our city engineer, before the Finance Committee last week. This is a $12,500 grant with no match. Mr. Parent tells us they'll be using this as one of the CSO issues at Jones Ferry. Some of the work will be equipment and stuff that the city owns that needs to be replaced. And it's a pump station, not so much a CSO, but it is one of the issues that come with CSOs. He highly endorses it. It's although a small grant, he notes that with the River Valley Planning Committee, that we've gotten the lion's share of money this year, and this will complement some of the stuff that we're doing with the Connecticut River. The committee recommends that we adopt it. We also reminded Mr. Parent of Councilor Leahy, Councilor Bartley's, report at the end of a grant when it's used, and now this new thing, which I think we all got to be mindful of after finding out the deficiencies in the grants, that department heads must take responsibility for the balancing of said grants at the end of the fiscal year.
Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading?
Motion be to pass the second reading. The clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for 17B. (17B).
Are you waiting for me?
Yeah. roll
Oh,
call.
sorry. Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Valentine? Oh, Bartley?
Yes.
With your vote, you approve the grant. 17C, Committee on Finance, who was hereby appropriate a transfer of $7,808.47 from Chief of Wires to inspections. Motion is to receive and adopt and pass the first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
The committee met with, on this issue, I spoke with Damian Cody prior to the meeting. We have passed a similar transfer of this nature several times this year. This is the chief of wires, which is vacant at the moment. Therefore, the building department we're doing a per diem when needed, use of bringing back a retiree from another community, I believe, that does the endorsement of the electrical inspections when necessary. This amount would be to pay some bills that are old and some to get them through the rest of, well, I'm sorry, not the rest of the year, but hopefully get them through until the pay chief of wires is actually filled itself. The committee endorses that the transfer be allowed.
I'm sorry.
I believe there might be one abstention.
Yes. Councilor Leahy will abstain. There's no further discussion. Motion is passed the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading?
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy? Abstain. LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Abstain.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the transfer. 17D, Committee on Finance, who's referred request for $24,362.77 from various line items with the Library Department to other line items, which would be vacation buyback, sick time buyback, reference library assistant for day and evening, and other vacation buybacks. Recommend that be adopted. Motion
Pass
is
the first
received. adopt, pass first reading, under discussion. Counselor McGivern.
The Finance Committee met with our longtime department head of the library, Maria Pagan, and she has been before us several times this year, and this is just shoring up some of the issues that she has brought to our attention. Coming from children's librarian, librarian assistant evening, assistant director are currently vacant positions, some more recently, some for a bit of time now. Going into vacation buyback, sick time buyback, and sick time buyback and vacation buyback, 4 different amounts, are for people who have left that have buybacks coming their way. The reference library assistant and reference library assistant evening transfers are, these are per diem positions that these particular positions pay a little bit more per hour, and she feels she has better chance of covering the hours that she needs to cover by using the monies within these particular line items itself. As any transfer, these transfers come with the mayor's signature and endorsement, and of course our city auditor verifies these numbers. And the committee met with Maria, answered all our questions. We recommend the transfer be adopted.
Any questions? Counselor Murphy.
And just, this is an area where it appears that we are losing good people simply because of salary. So, I mean, I think we really need to take a look at this and try to be competitive as best we can. We may not be 100% competitive, but clearly we lost, I think, 3 people in the last 6 months, all because of salary. You know, I think we need to try to make sure we have some stability there. It's a beautiful building. They offer a great service, so we want to make sure we can keep the people there that wanted to stay.
Correct.
Councilor Murphy, you think that's bad? You should look at the public schools. How many teachers they've lost.
Yep.
So motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading?
Motion is to pass the second reading. The clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lacy?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Bartley? Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the transfer. 17E, the Committee on Finance has referred an order, the sum of $6,540,000 be appropriated to pay costs for capital planning projects, which would be the piping for hydrants and everything else for the water department. Recommended that be adopted. Motion is receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Our discussion, Councilor McGivern.
The Finance Committee met with Dave Conti, the Director of the Water Department, along with Chairman of the Commissioners.
Bill Harablis.
Bill, thank you. I lost his first name. Sorry, Bill. And we had a good discussion. This 6.5 million, 5 million plus addition to the bond would be in addition to the 13.9 million we passed earlier in the year. The 13.9 million is what will address Fairview Avenue, and that was passed even before the tragic fire on Fairview Avenue and the water pressure issues came, to a head. Water pressure issues that, the water department has been addressing over the years, and more recently, a number of their bonds came to fruition, and thus they've been able to borrow a little bit more without going crazy on the water rate itself. There will be an increase in the water rate if we adopt the $6.5 million bond, but I think we've been briefed twice on this, and there's a map that they again brought to our attention of deficiencies within water pressure in other parts of the city. Includes South Holyoke, includes parts of Ward 4, parts of some smaller ones in Ward 6, and some smaller ones in I believe some in Upper Ward 2 itself. This is an ongoing effort by the water department. They do as much as they can in-house, but they also do some contracting to bring this up to date. Some good questions were asked, which included some immediate work that was done on Northampton Street, where a high-pressure main was connected to Fairview Avenue and Morgan Street area to quickly give that some better water pressure in that area, but while they wait to have the project itself take place. The committee, after listening for the second time to Mr. Conti and to the chairman of the Water Commission, we agree that this, and I think we actually requested this as a body, that this additional $6.540 million be allowed to be bonded for. Again, pointing out, and we verified this during the committee meeting, is Water Department, Gas and Electric Department do have to come under our umbrella for their bondings, but it does not have a direct impact on our bonding because this is all used out of, both of them are not enterprise funds and is directly paid back through their user rates. So this bond itself, although it's under the umbrella of the city and they do need that endorsement, it does not have a direct impact on our bonding capacity.
Counselor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you. On this, I spoke directly to State Treasurer Deb Goldberg, and in her department, in her office, she has a department also called the CWT, the Clean Water Trust, and she put me in touch with the Deputy Director, Nate Keenan. And Nate Keenan, his role in this department is giving low-interest loans to municipalities such as ours, which is pretty much goes down to 2%. However, I then contacted Dave Conti, and the requirements that they need kind of supersede what we have. So to make a long story short, what their requirements are would not totally match up to what we need. It's a close fit, but it's not one to be done. But I do applaud her, and I also applaud Mr. Keenan for speaking to me for a half hour or so.
Anyone else? One thing for those who are at home, we did ask the Water Department with regards to deficiencies. They have addressed, as we just saw on Northampton Street, they put in the 2 new mains in order to address fires down on Fairfield if that were to happen again. And other areas of issue, they have worked with the fire department in order to make sure what hydrants are of use so that this doesn't happen again, while we're trying to get the piping up to where it needs to be. So everyone is on the same page and plans have been set, so I just want constituents to know that.
Yeah, if I could,
Councilor.
yeah, on that, I did bring them into the public service, and they are now on the same page, whereas they have on iPads exactly GPS where exactly the hydrants are and which ones are working and the other ones that aren't in such good shape. So the fire department and the water department are on the same side, and the water department also has somebody on call for every fire, so they can go and inspect the hydrant before and after it, and also another person to go shoot down and increase the water levels. For instance, West Holyoke, I keep using Linda's area for an example. I think there's about 500,000 gallons of water that are available right now, and the tragic fire on Fairfield took 750,000 gallons to put out. So that just goes to show you, we need to enlarge our holding capacity.
Thank you. There's no further discussion. Motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading?
Motion is passed the second reading. The clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the increase in bonding.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the bond. 17F, the Committee on Finance will refer in order that the tax collector provide the city with the top 100 property owners that are delinquent or not current with the tax bill. Recommended that's been complied with.
Take a motion to receive and adopt the committee report.
Motion is receive
Second.
and adopt. That's been complied with. Under discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council President did join us last week with the Finance Committee meeting, and we appreciated both his presence and letting us know that, with the tax collector providing this list, that he feels that his order was complied with. I wanted to say something on a personal note to Councilor President. I reserved this from earlier this evening because I have enjoyed working with both Danny and Josie. Josie represented Ward 4, which I had represented for over a decade. I understand what ward representation is. Councilor President pointed out something to the Finance Committee when we were talking with a department head, something that reminded me of something that happened many years ago. It goes without saying that Dan and I have had more than one spirited discussion in this chambers. And like Dan said, we often would go out and have a beer later, and I'm not saying we laughed about it, but we got over it. But many years ago, Dan President was here as department head, Department of the Board of Health. And I overreacted to a request from him to get some money for overtime for people who worked in his department. My overreaction was my passion that Brian Smith taught me is you don't spend money that you don't have. Danny's passion was for the people that worked for him. Danny, I apologize for that overreaction some 20 years ago, but I did want you to know that publicly and not just when we're having a beer.
So,
Says you have 2 beers on.
I think I'm one up on the beers, but we won't go there.
So motion that the order has been complied with. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There was no public safety, no public service, development and government relations. 20A, sorry, not 17. Committee on DGNR was referred a petition for Verizon and Hoyoke Gas and Electric to locate poles, wires, cables in certain areas. Recommend that be approved. Our discussion, Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, make a motion to receive, adopt the committee report and to, we'll take that up in a minute, not yet. Receive, adopt the committee report.
Second.
Motion is to receive, adopt. Our discussion.
Yeah, so let me just get why are my notes all messed up today? Okay, right, so we had, if you recall, Mr. President, the last full city council meeting, we took these up in a public hearing, and we continued the public hearing to December 9th at the DGR committee, and we'll, after we do 20A, we'll go right to 20G or whatever it is, and so there were 2 orders. One was controversial, one was non-controversial. This is a non-controversial one, and this is a case where we had Mr. Davis from Pike Telecom as a contractor from Verizon. Essentially what he's doing is moving a telephone pole off private property and moving it onto a public sidewalk. By doing so, it is now subject to taxation by the city of Holyoke, whereas in this current position it is not subject to taxation. No one from the public spoke on this, so I can only assume that the property owner was in favor of it, because clearly they'd be noticed, and the committee voted unanimously to, so we closed the public hearing, and we approved the petition in committee.
Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you. If I could, through the chair, ask Councilor Bartley. Wherever they put it on the sidewalk, will the sidewalk remain handicap accessible?
Yeah, through the chair, the question of handicap accessibility was not specifically raised in committee, and we closed the public hearing. Now, I'm assuming that since sidewalks are subject to ADA, I would imagine that they would continue to remain accessible to persons with disability. But to specifically answer for that exact location, through the chair to Jim Lee, we didn't bring it up, Jim. So I don't know how to answer that other than to say, I mean, it's still subject to federal law.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to.
I don't think they can take away the handicap accessibility.
Okay.
Any further discussion? So motion is to receive, adopt. On this one, you need a roll call, Counselor?
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. So clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, it's 20A. You're approving the transferring of the lines and stuff.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Mr. President, just motion to take, suspend rules, take 20F out of order, and to also take up off the table item number 10.
I'll second that.
Second.
Item number 10. So motion is to suspend the rules, take up 10 and 20F as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And we're going out of order. 20F is from DGNR, request for permission to locate poles, wires, cables, etc. On Harvard Street. This is from Verizon. The applicant is asking that give leave to withdraw without prejudice. And 10 was tabled. And that was a letter from Verizon, notice of withdrawal for the Harvard Street relocation.
So there's motions to receive and adopt the committee report.
Motion is to
Second.
receive, adopt the committee report, to give leave to withdraw without prejudice. Under discussion, Counselor.
Right, so we open up the public, we continued the public hearing pursuant to the advice of the clerk, and we did that on December 9th at 6:30, and we had Mr. Davis before us. Before we were going to have the public address us, but Mr. Davis said he had a letter to read from Attorney Bissett, and the letter was very brief and to the point, as you just summarized. Dear City Council President, we hereby withdraw. Sincerely yours. And that being said, that the company doesn't want to pursue its petition, and we accepted that, and so we voted to give it leave to withdraw. Is that what we voted?
Without.
Yeah, without prejudice, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So,
It's
I
a
don't
motion.
remember the phrase "without prejudice." I don't recall that being, I don't recall that being said in committee at all.
It's in there.
And it's,
I know
By the way,
I
it's
mess
not-
up with my glasses, but I'm seeing it.
It's in there.
no, I can tell you, I would have written that in my notes. Yeah, those words were not, those words were not said in committee. So it was a question of just giving a leave to withdraw. Well, we did not in committee recommend we didn't say the words without prejudice. In fact, I wish we had said with prejudice, but we didn't vote that way in committee either. So we just said leave to withdraw, period. So I'm going to amend my motion and motion to say that this body give this petition leave to withdraw.
The motion is to amend the order to say give leave to withdraw, striking out without prejudice. That was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So as amended, 20F and 10 is recommended that we approve the committee report to give leave to withdraw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are now back to 20B. Committee on DGNR, who was referred in order that Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 4A, the City Council approve the agreement between the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission, City of Chicopee, City of Hoyoke, Pioneer Valley.
Motion receive and adopt the committee report.
Motion is
Second.
to receive, adopt, and approve the report. Under discussion,
Yeah,
Councilor.
we had Mr. Parent, our city engineer, before us, and he gave us a rundown of this. This is a 25-year agreement, which I didn't know they existed, but I guess they do, and it requires council approval. The original agreement was signed by several cities in town 25 years ago. 25 years ago, it's Connecticut River Cleanup Committee, and it's regarding combined sewer overflow. The committee used to be, the committee is now Chicopee, Springfield, Holyoke, and the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, which administers the program. The City of Holyoke expects to receive $1.5 million from the Commonwealth between 2016 and 2020 for sewer separation at Jackson, Front, and Heritage Streets. The administrative cost to the city is $2,000 per year. So, obviously, that is an expense. But yeah, well, we can't appropriate, but we said we looked at that and we said it's fairly reasonable in light of the fact that there's money involved. Mr. Parent did note that Agawam and West Side and South Hadley were in this Connecticut River Cleanup Committee, but they've eliminated their CSO problems, and so now they've moved on. And Mr. Parent said this has already been endorsed by Chicopee and Springfield. I mean, apparently this is a committee that the three of them meet. So Chicopee, Springfield, and Holyoke are going to meet on a regular basis. I mean, I'm assuming that they're subject to open meeting law. I've never once seen a notice of a meeting like this, ever. But I assume it exists somewhere, and that they publicly note the meetings. And so they meet, and they talk about CSO stuff, and then they vote on how to allocate the funds. And in this case, it's $1.5 million to be allocated. And so that's the good news. The bad news is as follows. City of Holyoke has many, many, many years and many, many millions of dollars, upwards to 50 years and tens of millions of dollars to go until its CSO problem is cured, Mr. President. So the good news is they're going to get 1.5 million, and the bad news is about 50 years to go at this rate. So he noted that Chicopee has decades and Springfield has decades to go. Chicopee has spent over $100 million, and then it was in Chicopee the last 10 years, how Chicopee Street and Groton Street and you name it, they've just been shredded to bits. But they're coming back, and in City of Springfield, same thing. They've spent millions, and then now they're going to have to spend $75 million on a pipeline that's going to go underneath the Connecticut River. So good for them. So at any rate, that's where we are.
Any further discussion? Motion is to approve, seeing how it's for contract. Clerk call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for this joint venture.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy? LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
10 yeas.
With your vote, you're approved. 20C, Committee on DGNR, Holyoke Code of Ordinances, property available for disposition. Said parcel is identified at the following page for 246, or has an assessed value at $246,300. Recommended that be adopted.
Motions to receive, adopt the committee report, and to declare the aforementioned property available, surplus property available for disposition.
Motion is receive, adopt, and to declare the parcel a surplus. Under discussion?
Yeah, this property has a pretty interesting history, and Councilor McGivern helped us recount some of that. It's in between Walnut and, oh my lord, I can't read.
Elm Street.
Elm Street, thank you. And it's proximate to the new Matt McDonough Juvenile Court. It's within kind of close range to it. It's also abutting that building that had the fire a few years ago. It starts with a U. It's had a really odd name. Usina Building or something, and there's a park, and there's an empty space, certainly not a park, it's an empty lot next to it. And so the plan from Mr. Dijek and Mr. Marrero is to RFP it and see if it catches any bidders. And we're always open to hearing about properties coming off the city's balance sheet and moving out. The tax taking amount, so it's been city-owned since August of 2019. It's been vacant for gosh knows how long. I don't know if I've got that in my notes. It's a combined residential with 8 units, and looks like at least two commercial units. I mean, it's a fairly attractive-looking property, but the tax taking amount is $481,206. It's zoned business limited, and so committee voted unanimously to declare it surplus. Just a reminder, to declare property surplus, we need a 2/3 vote. To declare property, to convey it out, requires a majority vote.
Any further discussion? And that motion is to accept the committee report to declare it surplus. The clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for declaring it.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Your vote, you're approved. 20D, Committee on DGNR, it was referred in order that the city council and the Holyoke Procurement Office vote to accept the $10,000 offer for the redevelopment of 47 Chapin Street. It's zoned downtown residential and assessed at $116,000. Recommend that it be adopted.
Motions to receive and adopt the committee report and to convey the property to Mr. Shallow for $10,000.
Motion is to receive, adopt, to accept the $10,000. Our discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President, so this require a majority, not a 2/3 vote. Yeah, 10,000 seems maybe not like a big number. Let me see what the back taxes on there. Back taxes, I had it. Yeah, at the time of the tax taking in 2014, the amount due was $36,691. It went out to RFP. There was one other offer on it. It was for $1,000. Mr. Shallow is a Mr. Morrell is a known receiver, does good work. He's going to spend $10,000 on this. He plans to invest $166,000 to replace the roof, windows, remove garages. He's probably looking at 6 months to rehab it. He plans to retain it as a rental property. I can just say that this is in Ward 3. It's been sitting there. It's an attractive house, but it just, it's a really large house, but it's on a kind of a kitty corner to several streets, Gates and Chapin and Castor, and it's, near the legendary Davis Street. And so, you kind of hope it's been sitting there ever since I've been in office, which is now 8 years. So you kind of hope that somebody would take a shine to it. Mr. Shadowell seems to be the right person, and the hope is that he'll get up and running and back up on the tax roll. So the committee voted unanimously to sell it to Mr. Shadowell.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yep, I would just like to point out to the body that the demolition of a building like this, which would be our only other option, this has transite siding on it. It has an asbestos, what's referred to as a snowman boiler in the basement. The cost of demolition, even with a city crew, would probably be in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $60,000.
Counselor McGivern?
Just like to speak in favor. This is a win-win for the city, not just the $10,000, but the fact that this is a vacant piece of property for which we're collecting no money on now, and a private investor, developer, as Councilor Bartley said, a receiver with a proven track record is going to spend $116,000 and put the property back on the tax rolls. I think it'll enhance the neighborhood, which is a plus for everyone.
Counselor Tallman?
Yeah, very much in favor, and good hearing about this project with Mr. Shallow. It's important that we occasionally have meetings in DGR to bring in properties that are vacant and that are trying to get back on the tax rolls, and it's important, especially in certain neighborhoods where there's one or two houses that are vacant and been vacant for a number of years, that the city takes these properties, gets them back on the tax rolls, and improves that. It's very it enhances the values of the neighborhood and of the city, and also that they'll be looking at the Office of Planning and Development will be coming in with other properties within the next few months to see if we can put those also back on the tax rolls and get the tax money for properties that are just sitting there and actually deteriorating. And I want to thank Mr. Shallow to come in and really invest his time and his capital into a building that is really needed for the city.
There's no further discussion. The clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Bresnahan? Leahy?
Yes.
Bernard Martinez? Yes. Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Bartley? Unanimous vote.
For your vote, you're approved. 20E, Committee on DGNR was referred in order that the Director of Housing Authority and the Superintendent DPW come before the DGNR to discuss plans to improve snow removal in the paved alleyways in the Churchill Homes section. Recommend that's been complied with.
Motion to receive and adopt the committee report.
Motion to receive, adopt, under discussion.
Yeah, this was filed by Terry Murphy, and we had a really good discussion with Matt Mainville and others, Ms. Muriel, Ms. Dijek, and it was I learned a lot actually about alleyways and all this. And when Mr. Parent was here too, sorry about that. The issue is a pertinent one for many residents of the city, especially in the downtown area. I think that I think that Mr. Mainville had heard what was argued, and he's going to, redouble his efforts to sort of educate at least those under his jurisdiction about the importance of, clearing the alleyway and clearing the gates that lead to the alleyway. But I think with that, I'd rather just turn it over to Councilor Murphy, who filed the order.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very appreciative of both Mr. Mainville and Mr. Parent offering their comments, and I do appreciate the fact that they're going, when they can, they're going to try to plow away from the driveways that are located in the alleys. I also learned there are people that have fenced in their backyard, which is part of their driveway, and that he's going to be a little more, when people are talking about doing those kind of things, to try to make it so that they can do it without having this potential winter hazard. And I do appreciate his time. He also went through the various alleys and streets so that, they're talking about, and it's the housing authority that is doing this, that they're going to try to plow away from the driveways whenever possible. And in most cases, they said that's possible. So I do appreciate them coming in and offering to take a look at it and try to resolve the problem for most of the homeowners there.
Councilor McGivern.
Just like to note that Councilor Murphy and I both belong to Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish, which is the abutter that Councilor Murphy is suggesting the DPW plow the snow onto their property. And Father Mendez, I believe, is okay with it as long as we don't damage the fence.
Yeah, but then I gotta do the shoveling, he said.
So the motion it's been complied with. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? There was no charter and rules or joint school and council. On to motions, orders, off to 25.
Make a motion to suspend the rules to take up 25, 26, 28, 29, 31, 32, and 33 as a package. Refer to Committee on Finance.
Motion is to suspend the rules, take up.
With abbreviated reading?
I will read them top to bottom. 25, 26, 28, 29, 31, 32, and 33. Did I get them all, Joe?
You did. We've already acted on
Actually,
24 and
Ryan
30.
was.
And we have one to adopt tonight.
So 25 is a clean energy grant. 26 is transferring $13,310 from police, a line item for vehicles. 28 is $2,716 from building inspector to building commissioner. 29 is a Hoyoke Homes project grant. 31 is the mayor to execute a contract, deliver recyclables to the Springfield Recycling. 32 is $2,500 from the floating clerk to Munis. It's a stipend. Then 33 is $2,500 from head administrative clerk to a stipend. And that would be it. All to finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Off to 27.
Make a motion to receive, adopt, pass the first reading.
Second.
Motion is to receive, adopt, pass the first reading. It is a request from Councilor McGivern as the chair of $12,922.22 from sergeants and patrolmen to injured on duty, of which there are 5. Motion would be receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Our discussion, Councilor McGivern.
This is an accounting move to show that individuals who, for a period of time, sometimes short, sometimes a little bit longer, are injured on duty, therefore their salary is still theirs, of course, but we do this to remove it into a different account to account for they're not providing the service at the moment of time they are listed as injured on duty.
Motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you vote for the transfer.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi? McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Valentine? Bartley?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve the transfer. 34 from Councilor Murphy, that a no parking except to load and unload on the northerly side of Sergeant Street between Main Street and the alleyway be eliminated.
My motion to refer to the ordinance committee.
To ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 35, from Councilor Murphy, that the DGNR committee meet with the superintendent of DPW to develop a planned schedule for snow removal on sidewalks adjacent to all of the canals within the city. Motion be receive, adopt, send to,
DGR.
DGNR.
so you want to DGNR?
Yeah.
All right, so to DGNR.
Just receive, not adopt.
Yeah, just receive, send to DGNR.
Can I just make one?
Yep, go ahead.
And again, that's, this is a constituent request, but it's, and I tried to find out, and I've talked to the superintendent, I thought maybe the gas and electric, because obviously the canals are under their purview, but it is a city thing, and I did talk to the superintendent, and they are actually trying to revisit a time schedule for what they do and when they do it, but I've had constituents walking by the canal on Cabot Street and very concerned. I've had people on Main Street coming from Dean School, coming by 391, and being out on the road, which is a narrow road as it is. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of things that have to get done. The Main Street Canal was 9 days before they plowed it. And that's, we gotta get a schedule. So that's one of my goals, and I know the superintendent has talked about, he wants to do the same kind of thing. So hopefully we can put a plan together for canals and for other aspects.
So motion was to receive and refer to DGNR. All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 36, from Councilor Murphy, order that in support of the $6,566,000 million Mass Works grant for infrastructure improvements that will serve as affordable homeowner project in the vicinity of Carlos Vega Park in South Holyoke. Order that, and then you have a list of all the things that you're looking for.
Make a motion to be referred to the ordinance committee.
To ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ted?
Councilor Sullivan.
I'd like to make just one short editorial comment regarding that grant.
Okay.
This is the same governor we met with that couldn't find one dime to help us with additional funds for new schools, but now Boston's magically come up with $6.5 million. And this is for treescape, landscape, pedestrian, bicycle lanes, stuff like that. Same people that couldn't come up with any additional funding for our schools. Sad.
On to 37. That's a good point. From Councilor Bartley, order that the city council amend city ordinances to require property owners to clear snow away from fire hydrants, leaves from catch basins, refer to ordinance.
Yeah. So moved.
To
Second.
ordinance.
Second.
All-
I'd be adding on to make your
Make a motion,
mind.
we accept late file. Well, I'm sorry.
Adding Councilor Leahy.
Thank you.
Anyone else? To ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Late file B.
What?
Well, I had late file A. We started down this path. From Councilor Murphy, and this one came in, there's a reason for it, so it is a legitimate late file. From Councilor Murphy, that the handicap application for 533 South Street would be sent to ordinance.
Is that South or South Summer Street?
And there's the application for it. What?
South Summer Street?
South Summer, I apologize.
Okay.
South Summer. That would go to ordinance.
Ordinance and the Disability
And
Commission?
copy to,
And, disabilities.
all those in favor? All opposed? There are no other late files. Before we adjourn, I'd like to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you
to
for
you, too.
everything, and to Councilor McGivern.
And thank you for the badge, Mr. President.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
With no objection, we don't vote on this, but should we send something to the wake for
Yes.
Juan's mom?
Yes,
Yes.
Flower Fund?
please. I was gonna get you after that, but yes, please. Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.